Hi, good evening. This is calling to order committee, special committee on Ways and Means. It is 5:31. City clerks, can you take roll call, please?
Chair Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Councilor Antoine is absent, Councilwoman Graves, absent, Councilwoman Peterson. Here. We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to recognize that Councilman Vargas is here with us. We have the law department, we have clerk department, council staff, and a lot of friendly faces from the administration.
So noted.
How do you want to do this, Crystal?
Really?
Swearing everybody in.
Yeah.
And then if it's okay, I'd like to start with public property since they've kind of been a few nights already, and then move on to sustainability and housing and human services.
Yeah, that works.
That sounds good.
I feel like sustainability is also been here.
They have been here too, yes.
For good stuff.
So. Raise your right hand. We swear the penalty of perjury that testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but. Everyone's.
Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer.
Maris O'Mara, Finance Director.
Crystal Lindbergh, Deputy Finance Director and Budget Officer.
Kevin Brock, Sustainability Department.
Crystal Lindbergh, Director of Sustainability.
David Chair, Sustainability Department.
Rachel Ferrara, Human Services Director. Linda Baku, Human Services Advisor. Alyssa McDermott, Housing and Community Development Division Director. Deborah Dominic, Chief Policy and Resiliency. Mike Friedman, Director of Housing and Human Services.
Anthony Alves, Deputy Director of Public Property, International Meeting Director of Public Property.
Sue Robio, Senior Services Director.
So, this time I'll take a motion to entertain, I'll take motion, to entertain exhibit 16 into the record. Motion made by Councilman Peterson, second made by Councilman Taylor. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those in nay? Ayes have it. At this time, I'll take a motion to waive the reading of items 1 through 6. Motion made by Councilman, 1 through 5, actually. Motion made by Councilman Peterson, second by Councilman Taylor. All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I'm joined today by Director John Rosamanian and Deputy Director of Anthony Alves. The Department of Public Property is considered a revenue generating department. They generate revenue from building fees as well as insurance proceeds from claims filed on behalf of the city. The fiscal year 2027 budget represents a $5,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget, which is supported by the historical funds. And I was remiss in letting you know that their budget begins on page 263 in their budget book. You're looking for a specific page. Fiscal year 2027 total proposed budget for the public property department is $8,990,580. This represents a $300,692 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $8,689,888. Total salaries in fiscal 2026 were budgeted at $1,794,798. There are several changes to the budget this year that we are requesting. The first adjustment will be for cost of living increases for eligible employees, as well as step increases for union employees. There is a request to defund the coordinator public property position and fund it with the manager of facilities position at an annual cost of $12,193. Additionally, there is a request for 3 custodial laborers, one of which is transferring in from the telecommunications department for a cost of $145,165. And finally, there is a request for 2 new maintenance people for a total of $100,003, yeah.
Quick question, Chris.
Yeah.
So the position that is transferring from telecoms, is that going to be reflected in their budget?
Yeah, it was already reduced in the telecoms budget. You'll see a reduction for that FTE.
Awesome.
Certainly. And I will say that the custodial staff is also tied to the purchase of 444. We are currently paying Paleo Properties for maintenance of that building, and so the city will need to absorb those costs when that purchase goes through.
What's the difference in cost? What's it saying?
We are gonna be, I don't have the fiscal note in front of me, but it was a savings when we invested in the building versus paying. Their budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. They have quite a few line items, so we've wrote one slide for services and one for supplies. The first fixed cost is liability insurance. This is property insurance for our bonds and collateral. It is increasing by a little over $11,000 this year based on our estimated projections from the insurance broker. Fees not classified have been decreased by $664,000. Part of that is the reallocation of, the reduction for the 444 Before maintenance fees. But the bulk of that has been shifted down to private contractors and relates to prison streetlight maintenance. And so that is an annual maintenance contract they're required to pay every year. Additionally, under the discretionary line items, we have postage, dues and subscriptions, which are annual music licenses and professional memberships. Pest control is another discretionary cost and is anticipated to increase by $20,000 next year in support of our historical spending. Taxes are level funded, and those are property taxes for the campground property down in the southern part of the state. Private contractors considered a fixed cost, and this again most of their contract services. And includes the prison streetlight maintenance. Professional development has a modest increase of $3,000 from the total of fiscal year 2027 to $5,000. And miscellaneous professional services does have an increase of $25,000. This is to allow for additional architect and engineering services for maintenance and non-CIP projects for facility studies.
Just a quick question. What's the professional development?
The professional development is professional development for the staff. I'm not sure.
Is there
Training courses, licenses, we just bought a Bobcat, so just to train the guys themselves. The cost of training.
other certifications? Sounds thank you.
Of course. Any other questions on the services items?
Cornelia, you guys good? Jim, are you good?
Perfect.
Good, thank you.
Wonderful.
Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Are we going to do question now or?
If you have a question on something that like specific to what we're speaking about, or you can ask, just so you don't forget. But if it's kind of more general speaking, we can wait till they're done presenting.
Well, then I got one because you ended it.
No, we did it. You have it in a moment.
The question,
That's okay, right?
Of course. Yeah.
probably the question I'm gonna ask is the same one probably Oscar wants to ask. About the Camp Cronin.
Yeah, when we going to sell it?
That's my question. What's going on with Camp
We're
Cronin?
losing money there, $15,000 paid to Narragansett Town. We're not getting a dime on this one.
What is our plan for it? Are we gonna sell it? What's our plan? Do we have a plan
I think we're in discussion right now with Rhode Island DEM.
to sell
Good question. So we're in discussion with them.
it? Don't have to do with, is there a problem with the property down there? Like,
They might take over the property.
okay, I didn't know, there's not a problem, like, you have to remediate something because it has an oil or something in there.
No.
Okay,
They might take over the property themselves.
take over, not for free, I hope.
I hope not.
Okay,
It's up in
the air.
That's above our pay grade, right? Let's just make sure one person is speaking at a time. I know, so spectrum.
Okay, we're fine.
So I will take that as follow-up item. I'm actually not quite sure what the plan is for Camp Cronin, but I can report back to the committee based on feedback I received from the administration.
Awesome, that would be great, Crystal. Before Councilman Peterson speaks, I just want the records reflect that Councilwoman Joe Davidson has joined us.
So noted.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Just a quick question on Camp Cronin since we're on it. Is it in usable condition?
The building is gutted.
Okay.
So it would have to be, built to whatever standard. of this.
Oh, is it like functioning right now? Is Camp Cronin operable?
Like, can somebody go in and use it at any given time if they want to?
It's two shell buildings right now. There is no septic, there's no
Okay.
water, there's anything like, no, the only thing there is electricity right now.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Should we continue?
Excellent. Yeah, so I'll have some follow-up information on it. There. So on to slide 6. There are quite a few supply line items that have some modest changes based on historical spend and trending. As for the trend for my 5 years in budgeting, we have eliminated miscellaneous expenses and reallocated those dollars to more descriptive line items. So it's been a personal project of mine.
And we sincerely appreciate it very much, Crystal.
Wonderful. I do think it's helpful to let everybody know what we're spending our dollars on. As you can see, we have some small increases in small tools and shop supplies, as well as construction, maintenance, and supplies. Auto parts have been level funded, as has heating fuel. Housekeeping supplies are increasing by about $10,000, again, for additional spaces that are needing cleaning materials. Paint is level funded at $15,000. Motor fuel is seeing a steep increase of $200,000. This is supported by current pricing and in agreement with our current agreement, which we went out to RFP for, I believe, this fiscal year. So that's wonderful. So we have a new provider for those services. And that is our estimated cost for next fiscal year. Electrical supplies are also expected to increase by a bit, $41,000 to bring the total budget to $61,000 next fiscal year. Uniforms and wearing apparel are increasing to account for the new staff that we've requested in this department. We are level funding miscellaneous materials and supplies. However, there is a small increase to the rental of equipment line item. Maintenance service, again, is additional maintenance costs related to the purchase of 444, as well as operating maintenance that the department is planning on doing throughout the year, which includes window cleaning. I don't know about you, but I was very excited to see City Hall windows cleaned for the first time in 10 years.
It will be.
Additionally, there's a small increase to repairs to autos and trucks of $8,000. Property maintenance has been level funded, and repairs to buildings has also been level.
Just a quick question on this page. What exactly is repairs to autos and trucks? Like, I'm asking because there's a line item for auto parts. So what's the difference between auto parts and repairs to?
So, because we house the manager, the fleet manager in our department, so, fleet manager is responsible for, the vehicles that get repaired at the repair garage on Dexter Street at DPW. So we pay for the parts for, for most of those vehicles, especially ours, for the fleet, for DPW fleet, and like DIS, everybody that's got a car, we end up paying for the parts for those cars. And then as far as the repairs going to, if whatever we would have to pay that like auto body, things that we can't really fix.
External stuff?
Yeah, things that we can't fix in-house.
Just a question. I mean, we're all very aware that cost of everything has gone up extremely. So I'm just making sure that the line items for auto parts and tires staying the same is sufficient to the needs of this department.
So I believe the line item that we have for tires, most of the fleet with our last, what do you call it, the master lease, we're somewhat riding with a newer fleet. So we feel that the need for tires, for the next probably little while, is really limited. Unless we're not popping tires, but
Doing burnouts?
yeah.
Are you guys responsible for auto parts and tires for police and fire?
They pay their budget through the repair garage. For the fire trucks, police vehicles, things of that nature. We do send vehicles over there for repairs, oil changes, things of that nature, like say public property, DIS, things of that nature.
What's the actuals so far on auto parts for this fiscal year?
The actuals year to date are $3,738.
For auto parts?
Correct.
Is that lagging a little bit on billing, or?
It shouldn't be. I mean, to the deputy director's point, we did issue a master lease a couple of years ago, so the fleet in general in public property is newer than it had historically been. So many of those vehicles are less costly to repair and maintain than they have historically been. When we get into some of the other larger departments like DPW next week, for example, you'll see they actually have another allocation for auto parts and tires and a whole garage department in their budget. So the deputy director's point, the fleet manager is responsible for, managing and making sure that all of our fleet is maintained. But there are departments that have their individual budgets for auto parts, for tires, and what are they called, repair softwares. So like the external repair lines.
So just to clarify, the fleet manager is not responsible for any of police and fire maintenance repairs on their vehicles.
No, that runs through that garage specifically in coordination with the fleet manager. So my understanding is
So
that
they're
they work together, but they are not necessarily directly reports of the fleet manager.
Councilman Taylor?
The vehicles, are they all properly labeled, like the decals or whatever? I know last time we were here, we asked. So
Yes, they are.
What about take-home vehicles? Are they properly labeled as well?
Yes, they are.
How many take-home vehicles, you might not know this, but how many take-home vehicles do we have that go outside the city of Providence? Outside the state, let's say that.
Outside the state, I noticed about approximately 100 vehicles between all departments in the city of Providence. Not counting police and fire, I think it's probably 10.
And we don't know how many go out of state.
Out of state,
Not sure if we work here at that state.
I don't think, I mean, off the top of my head, I
Well,
don't
I've heard rumors that we have people that are driving to Connecticut, yada, yada, yada. So I don't know if it's true or not, so.
Not that we're aware of.
think we're aware of now.
If you guys become aware of any cars going to Connecticut, can you please let us know?
Put that on there.
Well, I'll tell you where I heard from, was in Sudafop. The vehicles they go to Connecticut in Sudafop. So I don't know
Yeah,
why.
we maintain the school department vehicle.
Sewer. I don't know why, if that's true, why they would even have a vehicle, because I mean.
Again, all the vehicles are on GPS, so even it's easy to find out.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Sorry, just to piggyback off of what he said. You said all, including the public safety vehicles, they all have GPS. So, can I have?
Of course. What's it?
I want to talk a little bit about mileage reimbursement on these cars. The take-home cars specifically, since there's 100 of you that are being taken home, we have a mileage reimbursement that comes from the city, from City Hall to wherever they need to go, right?
The large portion of that is fire, police and fire.
Okay.
There's only a very small percentage that is, like non-emergency type
All right.
vehicle.
The ask is very specific, but I'd love to be able to know how much in mileage reimbursement we're doing for these take-home vehicles. The reason why I'm asking is because if people are taking home their vehicles from wherever, let's just say they're going to court, and I'll use public safety just because you mentioned that the majority of the vehicles are for public safety. If they're living, let's say they live Cranston, Warwick, wherever it might be, but they have to go to the tribunal, but they're getting the mileage reimbursement from the city to the traffic tribunal to be able to report, that's like 3 to 4 miles per, and I get that that's probably not a lot, but it does add up over a series of 90 vehicles. And just as stewards of the taxpayer dollar, I think we should just have a better understanding of what that number is like.
Are you talking about city vehicles or?
City vehicles.
So nobody gets mileage reimbursement.
Nothing in terms of any, so, but when they use their own.
If they're using their own, they can apply for that, put in for it.
So okay, all right.
And I would say by and large, the mileage reimbursements we see are minimal. There's only a handful of departments that do mileage reimbursements, and they are departments that do not have city vehicles. So we do not do any reimbursements for driving a city vehicle.
Okay.
What's the approval process for mileage reimbursement?
The staff member would fill out a form, provide documentation of the number of miles they had driven. They would submit that to their director would sign off on that. It would go to accounts payable. Accounts payable would review all the backup and then send a payment to the recipient.
Yeah.
I think for, Councilman Vargas.
How many electric vehicles do we have?
Currently, we have about 20.
Yeah, approximately 20, and we have 10 more coming in probably the next 30 to 40 days.
And 10 more coming in?
Yes. Just at least 10 more.
Yeah, those vehicles that are coming in and through a lease.
So at least
Yes.
who make the decision to lease electric cars?
I mean, it was a group decision between the administration, department.
It was on the city wall. Municipal cars using transition over from.
I agree.
On the fuel. With $5 a gallon today, I will make a suggestion. Whoever take car homes, take the electric one.
Well, that, assuming it's going home on a full, not a good enough charge, because people, don't have charging stations at home, charge their vehicle overnight. To get ready for the next day of work.
It's 110 charge. It's a regular plug.
Yeah, I'm not
Plus police and fire don't have, I don't think they have electric vehicles.
And then then it gets into a situation where, I mean, you asked about the gas reimbursement. Now I have to take a vehicle home and plug it into my house, or somebody else has to take their vehicle and plug it into their house, and now there's gonna be an electrical reimbursement. We're using them right now for, inspector vehicles and anything for vehicles driving throughout the city itself. Because they have charging stations here to maintain the vehicle.
Because the taxpayers are getting fed up giving free money to the employees and take a car home. That's bad on ends.
Well, I mean, you're saying free money, but, I don't think it's free money. I mean, these people are working.
With all due respect, Director, the less employee who comes here to work making $40,000, he has to drive here, park across the street, pay for parking, and the guy who's making over 100, we give him a red carpet plus a car to go home. I think that's something that we have to discuss.
well, I believe for those who are taking the vehicles home are also coming in with phone calls at 10 PM, 2 PM, 4 PM to react to issues. I mean, I myself come in all times, just, if there's a problem, John's come in, and then, we're constantly hitting meetings before we even start work. So we're constantly all over the place as it pertains to the job.
You all set?
Also,
Councilman Taylor and then Councilman Peterson?
So just to follow up on that, so we have 25 electric roughly, we get another 25, or 20 and 25, whatever.
We have another 10 coming in.
Oh, no, 10, okay, how many charges do we have throughout the city? For these cars? Roughly, I'm not gonna hold them, I'm not gonna.
Public safety garage, there's 20 at public safety garage.
We're gonna be installing some at DPW.
And
We'll have enough, they don't have to share, they don't have to share things.
No, the vehicle, when you purchase the vehicle, it does come with a charger. It comes with its, a home charger, not
So plug-in.
a stand-up model charger, if you know what I mean. But we do have, plans of putting, how many more? Charging stations?
At the DP or the EIS building, I think they're gonna be putting in 8 to 10 to support the new vehicles that I'm talking about here. To be able to charge those. I think we have 22 currently in the public safety garage. And then we have one at the parks department. But we have the ability to pretty quickly install think up to 7 more there. Like when we did that one, we kind of laid the groundwork to install more of the carriage house. And we're also looking to install 6 to 8 at telecoms right now.
In our department work together.
So we'll have enough. That's what I'm concerned if we keep adding cars and now we don't have enough charges and the cars are running out. We have to do the Fred Flintstone and last question is, how hard is it or can we get a list of all of the take-home vehicles? The 100, so we can just see it, not just so we have an idea of, we talk about it all the time, but I don't think I've ever actually seen a list of who has.
Unless it's already been sent in a couple of times,
They did one for you.
Yes.
Yeah, just yeah. Thank you.
That's a formal request on behalf of this committee. Thank you.
Of course, it's noted.
Councilman Peterson?
Thank you. Are the charging stations accessible to neighbors? Can they use them? To the neighbors, to Providence residents?
No, you need
Yeah.
I believe you need a card for that.
Yes,
So every single charging station requires a card to be able to.
Specifically for, municipal.
My follow-up was to, what Councilor Vargas had said, with regards to, you had said that, you guys are on call pretty much all the time. Could you tell me roughly, like, in a week, how often are you picking up a phone call past your, like, traditional 9 to 5?
Well, I'm constantly picking up phone calls.
Don't count my.
Or having to go out to go do more with regards to any of the public properties?
So personally, recently, not much, and only because I have, been out and about with 2 shoulder surgeries since December. But, like during the, blizzard, I was out and about, and through the night, early mornings on pretty much most of that week. And then I had to go for surgery after that, but, prior to that, it's every once in a while. I mean, could be, monthly. I mean, I remember, it comes in spurts. I mean, it depends on what's going on and what people can handle. So
But can I make an assumption on your part? You can tell me if I'm wrong. When we know of projected things that we need to do, whether it's events, whether it's a snowstorm, we know that you're going to have to be on call much more than the standard work week, right? Is that the reason why you guys are looking for a manager of facilities and operations? Like, what is the role? How is the role going to differ from you as deputy director, you as director?
So
we're actually picking up 3 more buildings. Well, we picked up 2 more buildings. The new DPW building is the EIS building. Now we're purchasing 4 for us. So we need additional help just to cover those extra buildings.
Okay.
So the manager of facilities differs, only, so we're trying to find the best way to kind of structure things. So, we're hoping to, the idea is to try to put our current facilities coordinator into the manager of facilities, position. He just completed the, municipal, leadership academy. So we've been kind of working with him as far as, building him up through the city. And, so we look at kind of like what we're trying to accomplish for efficiency and managing staff and whatnot. Since I've taken my position, I've been working a lot with, more of a overview of the facilities department and, now helping cover the rest of the department and all the meetings and everything else that it comes with. So with my extra work, I haven't really been able to completely concentrate on all the maintenance staff and how we're building stuff. And, I was typically the person that went out and investigated issues with buildings. So now that we're trying to put some of that investigative work and, smaller non-capital project work on, manager of facilities, because I can't really do that to a facilities coordinator. It's
Okay.
kind of like a different
Level.
yes. And then, so that's kind of the thought process.
So this person is gonna be doing the deep dives into the pools to make sure everything is working.
We are currently coming up with a good plan, for that. We do have, some capital money, for the pools. What we have planned, we can't pull off, in the time that we have before the pools have to be open. So I believe the plan is gonna be that we're gonna try to resurface, the pools, and repaint with a, two-part epoxy. Do a few of them, this fall before it gets too cold, and then finish the rest, in the springtime. Is the hopeful plan.
Thank you. I think that's it for right now.
Awesome. Let the record reflect that Councilman Royas has joined us. Councilman Taylor has your questions.
I just want to follow up on
So
that
noted.
question. Councilwoman asked that, I make a joke about calling you guys, but I do call you quite often. And unfortunately, when I look at the calls that I do call you on my personal cell phone, not a city cell phone, because I don't have it. I usually start with Ben and then go to Anthony. Well, Anthony was out, so it's either been Ben or, and I've actually called John on weekends. Problems with the West End, leaking roofs, no air
Usually it's after
conditioning.
6 p.m.
It's always, it's on a weekend, it's on a weekend, and I try to tell the people, let me know during hours. Like the director of, recreation or the fire department, called on the leaking roofs, and so as far as, me personally, I can say that they answer the phone calls and do, address the issues, not during, hours, it's always after hours, and I appreciate that you guys answer the phone. Like I said, I go from Ben, then Anthony, and then John. And John has always answered my phone call and then always gets something done. Anthony did too, but he was out with his shoulder and he couldn't pick his phone up, so I just called Ben. No, seriously, you guys do answer. I'm very pleased with, the response that I've got. I don't know if anybody, I can only attest to myself. It's always, every time I look, I'm like, 7 o'clock on phones. I mean, there's an issue that can't wait. It's a leaky roof. It's going on to the basketball court, and we've already had replaced it like 3 times. Or there's no heat. Opposite, there's no air. Like, you know what I mean? So they always are very attentive to my needs, and I just want to put that on record and say thank you.
We appreciate that, Shane.
Yeah, you guys were very supportive. I don't know if it was supportive, but you guys were very present and collaborative when we opened up City Hall for homeless shelters. So definitely give you guys credit and gratitude for that.
Good.
Councilman Vargas, and then after this, we'll just wrap up this presentation. We have like 1 or 2 pages, and then we'll let the directors give us the report.
After this, two questions. Any reason why not everybody has the amount on these salaries?
So
Number one, number two,
I can answer that one. That
is a typo or is?
No, that's a me problem. So apparently I use we have Microsoft Visio. It's like a org chart designer thing. So, and I honestly just noticed this a little bit when I was trying to print out a copy before I came here. So I found that there is a problem when I export from Visio to like Adobe to a PDF. It actually takes information off the page. I don't know how to fix that.
We'll get you an updated one with all of this out.
Can anybody write the amount
It's
in
in the
this
book.
bunch of
It's in your book.
It's right in the
Oh.
book here.
I'll put it in, I'll do it for you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry. Thank you.
We can work out another copy.
Yeah, we certainly
You
get
guys look alike. I can't.
Jeez, I got a little more hair to see that.
So public property is in charge what fleets or cars? Only the
What fleets?
fleets, like you're in charge of DPW cars,
Everybody.
police, fire. So you are in charge of the whole
So we are in charge of like, the overall fleet for DPW, DIS, parking enforcement. We do work with the police department when it comes to the police cars and the fire department when it comes to their, like non-emergency vehicles. When it comes to like the fire department's emergency vehicles, they're the ones that take care of that because they have special needs that they have to, for what specific use they're gonna use it for. But we take care pretty much of the regular vehicles.
This $1,700,000 in fuel is for the whole city
Yes,
on cars and fleets.
everything, including emergency vehicles, fire
Including-
trucks, ambulances.
Thank you.
Just before you go, Councilman, Davidson, I guess I don't wanna keep talking about this for too much, but I guess like if your department is responsible for the maintenance and repairs of all those vehicles that you just mentioned, how come the budget for parts doesn't live in your department? Why is that separated? And
So for a lot of our departments, there are actually like mechanics that work in the departments that are report up to the director. So for example, in DPW, there's a department known as the garage, and there is a hierarchy of mechanics that work in that garage that work for DPW that are actually managing and maintaining those vehicles, and they have a budget for auto parts and repairs in that budget specifically. So in public property, these dollars are not necessarily dedicated to DPW vehicles. It's primarily public property or like inspections and standards, which doesn't have its own kind of garage shop per se. Public safety is another example where they have a garage, they have a shop dedicated to specialized equipment with specialized staff on hand. And so it just makes sense to keep those budget dollars with those staff that are actually doing that work.
yeah, that makes sense. How many mechanics are under public property?
There are no mechanics in the
There's
public
no
property.
mechanics, so no mechanics.
No, they're based out of their own departments. So like DPW has their mechanics,
Parks, I believe, has
Parks has their
mechanics.
mechanics.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Not a question about fleets or cars, but I am wondering about heating oil. Can you talk to me about that a little? It's surprising to see that it's level funded.
So heating oil, we are actually, the budget for that at some point is gonna start getting a lot lower. As we start replacing mechanical systems for electrical systems. Currently, most of our locations that use heating oil is, fire departments, because they got the older, boiler type units that are oil. And then the other items that we use, I don't know if diesel falls into that, but, generators. So home heating oil technically is a refined diesel fuel. But yeah, so most of our locations for heating oil is fire stations.
Okay. And despite the fact that expenses on this item would tend to be going up everywhere, we're not anticipating that will happen here.
Well, we're
Transitioning more into electric.
Yep.
That is now electric.
Just didn't know what the pace was, so that one just really jumped out at me.
I can show our actuals for fiscal, we can show the actuals actually have been declining in fiscal year 2024. They were $91,000. In 25, they were $85,000. And our year to date is just under $50,000.
Fantastic. Obviously supportive of the electrical measures. Didn't realize it was kicking in so quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have project managers in our department, and they are currently working on projects to replace mechanical HVAC and boilers and furnaces to all electric systems. So as we get these projects working and assuming we have capital to keep moving forward with it, we're just trying to push them out as quick as possible.
Thank you.
How much more do you have of this?
There's just one more slide and there's not a lot
Yeah,
to
let's
say.
finish this.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're moving ahead.
Yeah.
We'll ask more questions.
So the final category is budgeted capital budget. It has been reduced by about $500,000. That reduction is attributable to the ARPA investment that is expiring this fiscal year. So all of those dollars will be expended before the end of fiscal year 2026. And there's a nominal amount of $5,000 there in sort of capital needs that come up. And that wraps up the financial piece.
The floor is yours, Director, if you want to give us a quick rundown, of how the department is running and what your needs are, where you're selling.
Well, I mean,
Anything you want to add?
there's no fluff in this budget. I mean, every cent that's in there is being utilized to maintain all the buildings that we're responsible for, the vehicles that we're responsible for. Done quite a bit of work as far as maintenance on a lot of these buildings, 20 years of catch up. Feel that we've sort of caught up right now, so we're just moving ahead now. Appreciate if you can do that, help this budget get through.
And just to add, I gotta say, when you look at the last 3 years, especially the years that John and I have been here, I think that we've pushed out more maintenance and capital projects than the city's seen probably in 20 years. Our buildings are aging. We're playing catch up on a lot of mechanical, electrical, plumbing problems, roofing problems. And it takes time to get through these major issues. It's a collective, push with the entire department, even from our office staff, working on our purchase orders, and whatnot. So the improvements that we've made kind of reflect in the budget. And if we're asking for more money, it's only because we're fixing more issues and coming up and working on more projects.
Appreciate that. Councilman Taylor?
So a few questions. I know we are selling or sold. We sold engine 5, Humboldt Fire Station, and we're selling engine 4, Rochambeau. Do we get those generators out of there? We're not giving them the generators. Is that part of the sale?
There is no generators.
There wasn't one at engine 4 or 5? So all fire stations don't have a generator?
Well, those two didn't have them.
Oh, they didn't have. What do the others have?
Because when we were coming into the blizzard, we had a issue with the generator at Messer Street. It was a starter problem. So I physically drove to both locations in search of said generators to see if I could potentially scavenge parts for it. No generators.
And also, the DPW build. Well, let me ask the first question because the Ubers were flying. Actually, they're flying around last year. The question was.
A lot of numbers over here.
Facts and
No,
rumors.
it's good though.
It's facts and rumors.
Over here.
I'm saying rumors, but I think it's a fact. But I want to know. They moved to the Chapman Street, obviously, the
Yes.
upper echelon, whatever. I'm hearing that there is a bedroom that was done for the director of DPW. Is that correct? The bedroom?
A bedroom now.
Not a bedroom in her room office?
Just like Pima has, I'm not sure the proper name for it.
What is it?
Similar to that.
There's a bed in there.
It's not a full bed. It's a trundle bed. I think the word is just like it might even be like similar to a bunk bed that Pima has, just in case they are, well, especially Public Works. You do 24-hour shifts sometimes during snowstorms and stuff like that, and there's a place to rest.
So DPW is one of the buildings that, like, when there is a snowstorm that requires all the plowing and stuff like that, they do set up like a headquarters there. And, just like the people that are plowing the streets, they're pretty much working a 24-hour schedule, all the way to, you get people that are taking, 1 to 2 hour naps and then heading back out, and for a total of like 72 hours at a time, or, even longer. So I get, the idea is that, for the people that are in the upper building over there, where they have the headquarters set up, if they, need to kind of decompress and take a quick nap, they got a place to take a nap. In other locations, we have, mobile cots. That way, you know, if we need to set up shop somewhere, and have, some of the staff take naps, we can do that.
Is that the case? Sorry, Councilman Taylor. Is that the case at public safety? Do they have mobile cots in case?
There is mobile cots, right?
We have a dormitory that supplied us.
Yeah, fire's got all the.
And I'm still a little confused. So you've got one trundle bed and you got 30, 40 drivers out there. Who gets to use this trundle bed?
I think it's for the administration people. Like this last storm, I know the mayor was there, Gordon was there, Emily was there,
All sleeping
DPW
in the
director was
trundle
there,
bed.
Paul, and that same office there. And
They're all sleeping in the trundle bed.
Like going on, down in the portion where you're talking about.
Okay, so, and also going on DPW again.
Of course.
When do we have the new building? Because once again, I've heard that the DPW building is not, it's, let's say A through Z was ordered, but they're only gonna get A through P. Like, it's not gonna be everything they ordered because the money is going up so high. It's taking so long. Not your fault.
No,
I'm just saying.
So you take responsibility. The first time, first meeting I ever went to when I was hired was the DPW building. So we sat there and the first question was asked by the architects, what do you want? He gave a Christmas list 4 miles long, which came to so many millions of dollars. Once we figured out it was so far over budget, then it was reduced at that point. So yes, the building was reduced from the beginning portion from 2 years ago when they first started. But they're getting everything they need. And that,
When do we have a rough time frame of when it will be completed? Roughly 3 years, 3 years,
End of 27.
2027?
at the
Yeah.
end of 27?
I would,
It was a little bit before then. Probably 26, beginning of 27 tops.
Then just to go along with that, that's what I promised.
Good question.
I hear that we're giving 700 Allen's Avenue over to PRA, right? Is that correct?
Giving,
Well, not giving. Well, we're gonna sell it, or we're gonna do something with it.
again, that's under negotiation and
So if we do that, okay, let's, jumping ahead. So we get rid of it or whatever, I don't know. What happens with the mattress depot? Where does that go?
it's gonna be shifted over to the new property.
Is there room for it on there?
There is room for it. Think about the transfer
So
station.
they'll have the trailers up, so you just move over one, that's all.
Correct.
In 2027. Or 2028,
That's probably gonna be shorter time frame. I think
because that building will be gone and the new building won't be built.
the garage will still be there though, in the area behind the garage. The existing garage where they park the vehicles now at DPW, that's staying.
All right, last one, I got this, sorry. Salt pile, and I know that's probably not you, but I hear we have salt piles that are obviously, one was up near Triggs, one down here. We were renting, I guess, like down near the port or whatever. They said, no, you can't use it anymore.
Yeah.
What are we doing for the future for that?
Looking right now.
So we have not.
But we still, we'll still use, Pleasant View, way in the back. We'll still use that area because
We own that. They're in the winter.
it's on the other side of the city, which works out well, so people aren't traveling all the way to this side to keep getting, refills. But we are looking for a more general location here,
Here is it down the
like
port.
around the downtown area.
All right, I'm done.
So just a quick question on the mattress. Is it called Depot? We approved to transfer that to PRA this past council meeting.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned.
And at least myself, we have not been involved in any of those conversations. So if you could please keep us posted going forward on any possible changes to the mattress depot. I know Councilman Taylor is there every single week. Councilman, between these two gentlemen right here, they probably pick up 30 mattresses every weekend. So we got a lot of interest in that depot. So if you could please keep us in the loop, especially if there's any changes. Greatly appreciate it. Councilman Wiz.
Thank you, Chair. It's gonna take me a while to get used to that.
Yeah, just do it.
I just had a question about, is the administration similar to sort of the, any public property that's for sale? Anything coming down the pipeline that the administration is looking at in terms of selling public buildings?
chapter.
Yeah, the old, police and fire academy on Chad Brown.
Yeah, I'm aware of that one, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
other than that, not that we're aware.
okay.
Councilman Vargas?
Question on 700 Allen Avenue, do we have an appraisal? How much is this building so far?
So, is there appraisal for?
Is there an appraisal in the building?
No, not that I know of.
So,
It's like, we're public property, but we're really not responsible for the sale of the building. That'd be, Chicarelli on the real estate.
Nick Chichelli, yeah, real estate.
or that's,
Yeah, cause, so so between our upper echelon and Nick, they kind of work out, the whole, the way, buying and selling of the buildings. Even though we're public property, we kind of fall into what the plan is.
so that's different department?
No, it's our upper echelon and,
Real estate.
real estate department.
You have a question, Councilman Vargas?
Yeah, but they didn't answer my question.
I guess I think the point that Councilman Vargas is getting to, it's,
Well, there's a real estate department,
But that department is under yours, under your?
No.
Oh, that's what I was trying to
yeah,
ask.
no, I'm sorry. It's a separate department, real estate department, and they handle the sale and purchasing.
Who's the director of that department?
That would be me.
Nick Chicarelli. Dick Chicarelli.
but he's under planning.
Which is part planning and development.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's like an interesting point, because Nick Chickatelli is also, secretary of the PRA. Is that, I guess if he's the one, that's in charge of real estate for the city, but is also very involved with PRA. Is that normal practice? Chief over there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Providence Regional Agency is an agency that's been in existence, I think, 70 years. Its main mission is the agency that can handle eminent domain taking of parcels and properties. It also handles the real estate. Therefore, it is a duly constituted board. That's why Mr. Chickatelli is the secretary of that. So yes, property that would be acquired, sold, appraised, would go to the PRA.
I guess I understand that part. I guess like what checks and balances are to make sure that it just seems like a lot of
Their meetings are publicly noticed, and they have a appointed board that conducts business.
I'm on the PRA.
Members of I was about to say members of the council appointed to that board.
I guess like who would approve that? Like for us to I know it's the council, but I guess is there anyone in the administration before it gets to us?
Staff members of the Department of Planning would assist in identifying properties and then making recommendations to seek appraisals. Appraisal brought before the PRA board. The board would then entertain a motion to accept that appraisal and or process to identify qualified buyers if the city was selling property, including publicly advertised. And there is a city ordinance that says it cannot accept any value below 45% of the value.
Thank you. Peterson?
Thank you. You have two capital project managers positions and a senior capital project manager position. It looks like they're grant funded, or
Yes.
They're funded through the CIP. Yeah.
okay, that's what I wanted to double check. Where were they funded from? That was one question. And so let's talk about graffiti for a second.
Sure.
Conversation. You guys have done a phenomenal job. I have to tell you in general, everything that I haven't needed to seek out resource from you guys very often, but with Kennedy, you've been very instrumental. John, I've seen you at every meeting that I've attended. It's nice to be able to see you there. When it comes to graffiti, you guys have done a great job in handling, at least in my neighborhood, as much as what I've seen. What implementation plans have we changed the process by which we report graffiti and then have it taken care of to assist the neighbor? And if we have not, can you please repeat what it is so that we can make sure that we let our neighbors know? Because graffiti still seems to be a
Yes, so
large concern.
So if there is graffiti that's on public property, whether it's a electrical box, a telephone pole, or some sort of city building or city item, people can get in touch with 311 to report it, and that turns into work orders, which goes to our staff. And then our staff takes the work orders, they kind of divvy it up in areas, and then they can kind of hit certain areas. We do not do graffiti that's on private property or like commercial residential. That comes with a liability. Hypothetically, if there's graffiti on a house and we go there and we power wash it and we start ripping wood shingles off the house, we're responsible to now fix that whole section of the house. If we go and do a commercial building and the paint on that is like an onion with 15 different layers, and now we have multiple colored sidewalk wall, then we have to go and now essentially have to paint the entire wall so it matches all one color. So it comes with the liability.
Yeah. When people seek out resources, it's just power washing that you do. That's all it is. It's done to kind of remove whatever graffiti is.
So we do power washing, and our power washer comes with a high PSI, and it's heated.
Okay.
Water to help get the graffiti off. But so when it comes to city property, on the trucks with the pressure washers, we have a guesstimate of like 6 colors of paint. It's a brown, it's a black, it's a gray. It's things that align with electrical boxes, telephone poles, things like that, so that we can try to get it off. If we can't, then we're going to paint over it.
The reason I ask is because when we first started our term, I think we all had a large issue with graffiti all over the place, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. And I think at one point, if I remember correctly, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I thought that we were assisting neighbors, if not with assisting them to get rid of it, but assisting them with being able to just give them the advice on how to remove it.
So funny you say that. I've actually, I'm not sure how they get my phone number.
It's not me, I swear to God.
Probably another city councilor.
I actually take a lot of calls from people who aren't actually asking for us to come there and do the work, but recommend like the chemical that we use. Because we use a chemical called SNOT.
It's called SNOT.
SNOT, S-N-O-T. It works magically. But so so when I get the phone calls, I try to guide them in the right way if they're going to buy a pressure washer or if they're going to rent one, watch the pressure, all these like kind of little things. And I end up having a short conversation about it, just because, and that's a lot of times that's all they want is just information.
So just as an aside, if you guys want to post that publicly anywhere of a recommendation on either your website or with 311 so that can be a recommendation. Sometimes it's literally most of what people are asking for. And I know that you've gone above and beyond because I actually had a neighbor who told me that they called you directly. I swear to God, I did not. But you were very resourceful for them and they were actually able to solve their issue on their own. And sometimes I think that just the information, I'm a big person on communication. So the information available is just, it's like 95% of the conversation with neighbors. So you guys just want to, as a recommendation, if you want to post it somewhere, that would be
something we can actually give the information to 311
yeah,
office.
that's perfect.
We discussed that.
Yeah.
But prior to, we'll have to do, not that like we don't know it, but I would want to do a little bit more research to make sure that we're putting out a proper,
of course,
a proper write-up.
Yes. Thank you.
Also, just you have to be careful because lot of pets and stuff, and if it kills someone's pet, oh, the city told me to put this use.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not the way to walk.
We don't want this not to kill the dog, that's right.
It's gotta be careful.
That's a good point.
Oh, thank you.
Councilman Waters, your question?
One comment, thank you. The Academy building, where the water supply board used to be,
Yes.
what we plan to do with it?
Keep it in use. Currently, it's housing, the academy. It's housing our maintenance staff and all of our storage, for maintenance. And it's currently housing, certain departments for the police station. But it's pretty much to make up the building.
We're actually putting a new roof on it,
Yes, we
starting probably within the next 2 weeks.
gonna put a new roof, some structural work. Done a little bit of flooring, for the, police academy,
Making it go electrical, so.
making some improvements.
Thank you.
Councilman Reyes?
Yeah, just before we move on, I just want to just sing your praises and give you credit. I think it's important. Anthony was really pivotal in the Da Vinci Center, the only community center in my neighborhood to renovate after 50 years. And so I want to just thank you for. I know that was not easy.
No.
Appreciate it. And John, I gotta say, every time I send you an email, man, you get back to me right away. You really do. That means a lot to me. And so I just want to praise you both and your entire department.
Appreciate it. Thank
Appreciate it.
That's it. I think that's a good way to wrap up unless anyone else has any questions. Well said. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Lilly is up next.
There's one in the
Was there a vote? The staff will look for me.
The dogs.
Collect your thoughts and yours.
That was awesome. They got a lot. That's what we got a lot of people.
Right.
That's what I meant. That's fine. Oh, yeah.
Well, the budget.
Commenting on this, sure.
Oh, what? Everything merch they give me. For home. Huh?
All right, can I take your action to MTC 10 for 17 is the record?
So,
Motion made by Councilman Peterson, second by Councilman Taylor, all in favor, and I have it.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm joined today by our Chief of Policy and Resiliency, Sheila Dormady, and Director Della Cruz, the Director of the Sustainability Department, Deputy Director Kevin Croft, and Director of Energy Operations, David Ritchie. No, mine will just kind of kick off with the presentation. I'll run through the HLT slides and then get over to these folks to walk through. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So the total proposed budget for the Sustainability Department in fiscal year 2027 is $1,030,526. This is a $129,449 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget, or approximately 14.3%. Total salaries in this budget do not reflect any requests for funding of new positions. There is a cost of living increase of $11,875, as well as step increase for their one union employees of $508. And level funding of temporary salaries of $11,000. This provides funding for one mayoral fellow through the URI Energy Fellow, not mayoral fellow, one URI Energy Fellow, the URI Energy Program. Additionally, there are some requests to change titles in this department. David's title we are requesting, and I had inadvertently missed it in the ordinance, to change his title from the Energy and Resiliency Initiatives Administrator, which is a lot of words, to the Director of Energy, which is a little more simple and more indicative of the work he is doing. Additionally, the Fiscal and Communications Coordinator position is being changed to a Fiscal and Communications Manager to more accurately reflect the work that he's doing. And the special, the Sustainability Policy Associate title, it's been changed to a Projects Associate to again reflect the work that she's doing. It's more project-based than response.
So is that reflected in the ordinance?
It is in the org chart, and I got 2 out of 3 of them in the ordinance, but I somehow missed David's title, so I will need to correct that for final ordinance and adjust that.
Thank you.
Their budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary line items, the bulk of which are considered discretionary. First up is fees not classified, which has a $5,000 increase. This provides support for parking for the staff, professional development, stipends for necessary board members, and public meeting costs, including space, food, and childcare. Postage has an increase of $1,811 to accommodate the Barrow mailing that's expected next fiscal year. There's a small reduction to dues and subscriptions of $20, which is supported by Historical Trent. Printing has been increased by $3,500, again related to the Barrow mailing, or this will be the printing expenditure for that implementation. And private contractors have an increase of $27,000. This provides funding for translation. This is the fee we pay to URI for the Energy Fellow Program. This mostly the increases for climate justice plan updates, as well as stormwater and sewer program development. Under the supply line items, there is a $45,000 decrease in grant expenditures. That is not indicative of a decrease in work in this department. It's just the match the city is required to contribute next fiscal year has been reduced based on certain grants that have come to fruition and what is in next year. And miscellaneous expenses has been eliminated and moved to more appropriate.
Before we move on, the grant expenditure line, so we're decreasing it $45,000.
We're decreasing it because this grant expenditure line is tied to specific matches they already have. So last year, their matches in total for the external grants they had required $72,500. This year's or the upcoming fiscal year grants that they are participating in only require a match. It's a $72,500.
And then I'll also add that we shifted to private contractors as well. So there was both, like what Crystal's saying, that matches have lowered based on the grants that we've sunset and those that are coming in. And then also there were some line items that made sense to go under private contractors versus grant matches. So we did that shift. So you'll see that decrease there, but an increase in the private contractors.
That
And I
makes sense.
see Julie, our fiscal and communications manager, nodding. So I got that right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just to confirm, so every single grant that is anticipated for the upcoming fiscal year, we are already aware of. Like, there's nothing that can be, I don't think it's gonna be rolled out by our federal administration. But say like let's say introduce like a new grant that required municipal match that would fall into this department. Where could we possibly budget for that?
So one of the exercises we do mid-year is identify funding for new initiatives that come up. So should there, I will say pretty confidently that we never like to leave money on the table. So should the department identify a grant next fiscal year, that would be the exercise we would do. And where it would come from is certainly going to depend on where we're at in that year and where certain line items are also at. But there is no intent to reduce matching grants opportunities out there, particularly for sustainability initiatives.
That's spot on, Crystal. And if I can just quickly add to that, in terms of the grant matches, what you see there, Bar Foundation gives us $125,000 yearly. So we're about to go into a renewal process, so we've accounted for that on the grant match. And then I believe, Evan, we have the compensation, the lease
compensation study under that line item, tied to our waste initiatives. But in our, department description, we gave you what we currently have on hand in terms of grants leveraged funding. So for all those grants, we've already fulfilled our matches. We're just spending them down. And we also got a new grant from the Rhode Island Foundation, that doesn't require like a future match. And one of the things, I'll get more into this, but we're really trying to be mindful, like what are the key projects we're going to be working on. So we went through that exercise and factored that into the budget before you, and everything else we're just sunsetting so we can focus on these other bigger initiatives.
Awesome, thank you.
Any more questions on this?
Who else?
Wonderful. So this department is also responsible for our heat, power, and light budget. There are not a tremendous amount of line items in that budget. It's really just one. But if you're curious, it is on page 360 of your budget book. There is revenue generated by this department. It has to do with the energy credits retained by PPSD as part of our agreement with them. And it is level funded at $1.5 million in fiscal year 2026. The heat and power expenditures have been broken down by line item. This is one of the initiatives that the Sustainability Department has been working on. We are trying to more accurately identify what goes into this budget. So you can see that Director Ruggiero has done a great job of kind of explaining where the $6.5 million is coming from, based on previous years. And again, these changes are attributable to where we were at next year.
So just to confirm, so this doesn't cover all of our utility expense for the city, does it?
This is all of our,
This is
it would not include schools, but as well as city facilities.
All fire stations, everything.
Correct. David knows the exact number of accounts, but it's like well over 100, I would say.
Your utility?
Yeah.
Well over 1,000.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's what.
Like a little bit.
Little bit.
David, we greatly appreciate your work. This whole department are rock stars for this. David, I mean,
And again,
I'm talking for Councilwoman Andrew Watson, because she's she gave me flowers to give to you guys.
And again, the slide is just again another breakdown of the expenditures by type. That shows the total budget of 6.5. And that wraps up my narrative. I'll get over to the director to see if she has some opening remarks.
Thank you all for the time. And yes, we've been before. Oh, you have a.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, we've been before you a couple of times in the past 2 weeks or so. So what you have before you, like I started referencing, is basically a leveled operational budget. Crystal and David can speak more to the heat, power, and light budget, and I'll after this kick it over to David to just talk a little bit more about the heat, power, and light budget. And let you know how we're approaching that in the coming year. So in terms of this level budget that you have before you, I already mentioned the shift that we're doing. We have the reduction in the grant matches. It's natural because of all the grants that we currently have, like over 12 grants. So really going into this upcoming fiscal year is like wrapping those up successfully, right? We fulfilled our city matching, whether types of staffing or actual dollars. And now we really want to focus on the bigger arching projects. And that's why you also see the increase in private contractors, because that signals the continuation of the things that we're currently working on. So I'll just speak a little bit to those. The budget's well positioning our department to further the mission of implementing the climate justice plan. That's going to include all the work you've heard in the past couple of weeks, right? The decarbonization plan of really making sure we phase out fossil fuels from our city-owned buildings, but that we do that smart, strategically, that we are avoiding costs for the city and also bringing in revenue. We're going to be ramping up our investment in solar, not reflected in the operational budget. That's tied to the revolving fund. So we're gaining $3 million in funding to manage, right, tied to clean energy projects. We also are going to continue administering the building energy reporting ordinance program. That's including for our buildings, public disclosure of the energy, but also working with mostly private building owners to disclose theirs, but also to tap into energy efficiency. And we're of course doing all that decarbonization work along with public property and with the Parks Department. We're also going to continue implementing waste reduction strategies. The big one, we started off with we're close to 80% completion of distributing new trash and recycling cards. Then we can really focus on honing in on our food waste reduction strategies, but also reducing contamination and recycling, right? That's really going to give the savings that we're looking for, both environmentally, but also in what is costing the city to be better recycling. The third, we're going to continue pursuing working with Chief Dormady, sustainable and equitable funding for stormwater and sewer management, including flooding prevention strategies. We're also going to continue working on the community resiliency preparedness activities, aka our resilience hub strategy, like at the Ponyville Resilience Hub. And last but not least, we are due for a 5-year update to the climate justice plan. So that is a very rigorous, robust community engagement process to update that. So both with the stormwater sustainable funding initiative and with the climate justice plan, those are really big projects for us to deliver on. So we want to buckle down and focus on that. Other quick things that are important to know: when it comes to the software we use to manage the Building Energy Reporting Ordinance Bureau program or to manage 1,000 utilities, that lives in IT's budget. So you won't see it reflected here, but it's supplementary, right? And then we also, I mentioned the Green Revolving Fund. We also, as soon as the City Council adopts the Prop 4 Master Plan, we're going to be managing the Sustainability Reserve Account. Right now, there's $480,000 in there. And then Public Street Waterfront Access Project, there is money, about $30,000 living in the CIP under public properties hazard mitigation line. And that's going to ensure that we can deliver on that project that's so important to the Southside community. So I will leave it there, but if there's anything you want to add,
that public street example is another example of like previously that showed up under our grant expenditures as match. But the match, we matched the project at this point. We've matched all of the grants, but we're still investing in the project, which shouldn't fall under the grant.
Yes. And David, Key Power Life, anything you want to add there?
Other than building on something Crystal said, where we're tracking the expenses, breaking it down, it's great granularity. I did do some analysis because it's what I do. The last 3 budgets that we have created using EIS, using the new software, and breaking down our expenses, we've been within 9% the budgeted amount and the invoice amount on any given year or fiscal year. So there's a comfort knowing we go in there and saying, all right, we have contracts through the end of the fiscal year. We know that our costs are going to be in line with our usage. So it's kind of a fun project. What next? I guess that's the big question.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add to that, David spends a great amount of time tracking the volatility, right, of electricity and gas. So you all know energy costs are skyrocketing. There's a lot of volatility. So we do expect some minor fluctuation there. And of course, that would come back to the Crystal.
Chief.
And I made, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, on behalf of Flame Power and David's work and the entire team, to be noted, a 23% reduction in this year's proposed budget versus the prior year. Over a 3-year average, that budget has been reduced by 39.6%. Heat, light, power.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All due to the initiative that they have identified, the strict management of actual bills. It's a painstaking process, but it's a major item of the budget. Kudos to the team.
Does anyone else need to present on the before we start with our questions and comments? I just want to start off with, I obviously recognize and I'm so grateful for all the work that this department does. But my comments and concern, I guess you could call it, it's the same thing with Parks and Recs, is that these departments are doing amazing work. In contrast to Parks and Recs, this department is saving us money and bringing revenue. And it's the this, I mean, I want to be very clear because I think last time I said it, it was kind of worded a little weirdly. It's like, this is not to take away from any of the work that this department does, but I see this and then I'm like, we should be investing some of this money back into capacity building when it comes to this department. I don't know in which way, if it's in energy or resiliency, exactly where, but it seems like there has to be some level of opportunity to build out some of this capacity. I know one needs to respond because I know it's kind of awkward and I recognize that, but as a city councilor, that's my comment initially. Because obviously I'm very grateful for all the work, but at the same time, it seems like we need to keep building that momentum and having the same amount of positions. I just feel like it doesn't add to the training. Any questions? Councilwoman Gibson?
Thank you. So I first want to start with a comment. I want to applaud this particular department for all of the things that you have already said, but Priscilla, and I don't say this because you're a Ward 14 constituent, although that is an extra bonus. You've taken something that for me is a complete unknown and you've made it so understandable for me. You and Councilwoman Andrew also, she deserves her flowers here as well. But what you've done is you've allowed us to understand how much potential we have as a city to contribute in this way. And you made it easy for me to understand, at least, so a person who has no understanding about this, and also how important this part of what we do or part of what we can do with the city is. And so I just want to thank you because what you've done in 3 years is identified how we can be leaders, not only just in our city, but in our entire state. I've spoken about this before, but I went into a League of Cities and Towns meeting, convention where you were the presenters and you were showing other cities and towns what you can do with what we have. And in a time where we're looking for ways desperately to save and be cost effective, you've done that, and you've done that in a short time. And I think that the kudos is not just to you, but it's to your entire team. You've identified what we can do to move forward in a much more sustainable way. And for somebody who had no idea how truly not only needed, but how important it was, I just want to thank you because it's made it a lot easier. I know that our neighbors are paying attention to this part of it. I talk about it very often. I don't talk about it great, but I just say we have really great constituents that are spearheading a lot of this great work in the city. And I need to applaud that because I don't think that oftentimes we get a chance to really see, as detailed as you provided it, all of this really great work. So I just want to thank you and your entire team. You guys have been phenomenal and you've made me understand this in a way that I had no idea. I didn't know that I would be so interested in this topic. So just a simple thank you. It was a very long-winded way of saying thank you.
That means a lot to us.
But my two questions are, you spoke about solar, and I wanted to understand what we're considering in terms of solar, if you have any idea yet.
Yes, so David can elaborate more here. So in the decarbonization roadmap, there were about 60 buildings that were assessed. Guided by
130 assessed, 60 identified.
And so you even know. And then what we're doing now, because of the green revolving fund, because we're moving fast to secure as many federal tax credits before they sunset, is identifying what are the top projects. There are about a dozen right now that we are analyzing, and that includes schools. So David is really looking at like their energy usage, potential size for the solar system, and then making sense of the money that would come back into the green revolving fund. But David, if you want to add to that, it's moving really fast right now.
It's moving fast, and we went with 12 projects because their availability, their roof, the spacing, everything seemed to align. We knew that not all of them would come under contract. Many of them wouldn't qualify to move forward. we're finding that to be the case. The city could support its buildings about 10 megawatts. We have half a megawatt under contract now between the new DPW building and three contracts that sustainability is responsible for. This next round, we're hoping, getting what we hope for, like 1.5. So it'd be about 20% of the way there, which aligns well with our decarbonization efforts, where we're about 22% of the way towards retrofitting.
And by early June, we'll be able to say which schools we were able to get on the contract, recreation centers or other municipal buildings, just once we complete that final vetting.
That was actually gonna be my follow-up question. Is there any part of any of the new construction, that has been, determined that would be able to take on any sort of solar project?
We are considering new construction for the schools.
The schools, the new construction currently underway are the best bets because they are large buildings and they're all electric buildings. And we get free heat coming in the summer because the schools aren't in use as much, and that's peak production period. So yes, any large real estate is what we're looking for in critical areas such as apartment communications, which we'd like to do a microgrid there on the draw from small initiatives.
And then just my last question, is with regards to federal funding. Obviously, you've seen, not the greatest support and cheerleading of and championing of these, opportunities. How has federal funding actually affected what you guys are currently doing? I know you sought your way through what you already have, but what is there anything that you're looking at that's potential on the horizon? I know being in the grant field, I know what they're prioritizing. So I just wanted to see if there was anything that you guys were looking outside the box to consider for more in terms of federal opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been fortunate first that with the grants that we had on hand, we were mostly able to keep them, whereas other departments or other entities didn't face that kind of luck. I think where we're looking elsewhere is just trying to be more innovative, right? Where do we form a partnership either with the Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources to expand electric vehicle infrastructure? That's going to be another evolution where they still have money that we can leverage to then, open up our money. And then we're also very fortunate that we have grants and relationships through the Rhode Island Foundation, the Bar Foundation. And I think we're at a place just based on our staffing, our bandwidth and our resources that we feel like we have enough on hand.
Got it.
And then we also, on the resiliency side, and we work with other departments also comfortable in that area where there's still state funding to tap into and EPA money that wasn't clawed back that we were able to. So we're feeling pretty comfortable over the next year or two. But of course, looking for other opportunities, looking ahead, what we're going to need.
Thank you.
On the solar side, what David has been working on, is we're able to get a number of these projects, let's say we get 8 out of 12 of them under contract by the end of this fiscal year when this kind of like funding deadline that you're talking about for solar hits. We have a 4-year window to build those projects, so we'll be able to, we'll have like a pipeline of projects to kind of maybe see us through them. And then as David is always saying, he's seen the tax credits for solar and renewable energies kind of rise and fall. And I think it would be surprising if they can come back in some way or another under a different Congress or different administration. So hopefully we're able to get these things locked under contract in time to take advantage of the existing credits. And by the time we're ready to start looking at additional buildings, that credits, returned in some way.
Last thing I'll say is thank you very much for all your work on the stormwater project. It's extremely important in Georgia, especially on the branch app side. We've talked about all of these, but it's an essential for us. So thank you very much for really preparing for all of it.
Yeah, it's really important for the city. We'll continue working on that.
That's no worries. I was going to ask something about
And also just in building up what you just said, Councilwoman Peterson, we're going to be talking a lot more about stormwater, and we look forward to working with you on that because there's a lot of community engagement to happen around that conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all you do. It's great department. And thank you for the support that you've given to zero waste, that they going around and inspecting the recycling. That's a big plus because they educate, at the same time, they're educating the public. So we won't be saving a lot of money in the top, down the dump. The other, question I have is like, if you need any other, somebody else, yes, to check the waste and reduction of the fuel and the fleets that we have. I was going to ask how many cars do we have in the whole city? What happens is they need a system to go off if the car is left on at least for 5 minutes park to go off automatic, so that will save fuel in the future. Something that we need to start working on it, because if you notice when you go around, the police officer get out of the cruiser, leave the cruiser on, he goes to see what's going on, but the cruiser is still running. Should be a system where the cruiser goes off, and when he gets in, will go on automatic. Something for you guys to think about. Thank you.
Is there software out there that exists like that?
The fleet manager, sorry, public property was previously, talking about, he manages, he's very interested in reducing idling. Is what you're talking about to save fuel costs. It also does, puts a lot of wear on, the engines. So they require more maintenance. So he's definitely keyed into reducing idling, and Crystal, maybe you can, confirm this, but I think that they are, in the process of kind of transitioning to a more modern software to be able to track the vehicles and actually specifically track idling in vehicles, so that if they're seeing a specific drive, I don't know about the actual like turn off, but if they're seeing like this one car has, an idle time that's 700% more than the fleet average, they can talk to that person and be like, hey, what's going on here? You gotta turn the car off when you're just sitting there. So I know that that's something that's on his radar. It's not something that we're doing specifically, but I hear you, and we can bring that back to him also about maybe is there technology that we can do to just get shut off at 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like Councilman Torres, I've also noticed a lot of police cruisers doing it, and I called the chief once, and it was like, yeah, we'll take care of it. But I'm like, I'm not gonna call the chief every single time. Like, it's just like a weird thing to be calling about. But when I worked over here in Better Lives, there's a J-Rule substation there. Every single day there was multiple, if not different, vehicles idling. And yeah, I mean, I think something that we should correct in behavior. Councilwoman Davidson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I hope you can deal with praise because you got more coming from me. I'm super grateful to have been working with you, and happy to be on the Special Committee for Environment and Sustainability and be attached to the work that way. And folks in Ward 2 are incredibly grateful for all the stormwater work that we are doing, the collaboration, the education, and the actual work. So just like, thank you so much. Specific questions around, maybe this pairs with solar, but whether we're planning any expenditures for battery storage systems as part of these systems. That's number one. I'll throw out number two because it might be part of the bigger answer. I see no investment expenses related to heat pump installation. So just wondering about those two things.
Did you want to check the battery storage pumps?
Sure, those are mostly in the CIP budget.
Okay.
We work towards that. Battery storage, put in line and requests for the Charleston Center to have a microgrid there, as well as Elmwood and Department of Communications. Eagle would be a good location as well, though they can't support solar. And that's because you have generators there, you have a need there.
Yeah, of course.
So we are looking at battery storage seriously. We have some money in the CIP, which we hope if green revolving fund, everyone wants to vote yes again.
And I believe there's not to interrupt, but I believe there's also some grant eligibility. I mean, some subsidy eligibility currently. I think there's some subsidy.
Yes, they don't go away. In fact, the solar ITC credits go away. Batteries will stay. Ground source heat pumps will stay as well. And we're meeting Monday with OER to discuss, some microgrid money that's available.
Yeah, we're always talking to OER to see what funding they have that they can send our way.
And with regards to heat pumps, all the new building projects that the city takes on have to have electric heating, have to have heat pumps, whether they're air source or ground source heat pumps. The Rhode Island utility and PUC have not allowed fuel switching as of this current 3-year plan and probably the next one, which means we can't, there isn't a lot of money there from the utilities.
Okay.
Because it's just been deemed appropriate to use ratepayer money, gas ratepayer money to pay for electrical systems. Those working in Massachusetts, that's why I have heat pumps in my house. There are still incentives on the federal level for ground source heat pumps, which are more expensive to install, but less costly to operate. The benefit there is when you start renovating large buildings, and money buildings at the same time, think of phase 4 schools that are coming.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I'll add, David, that we're just talking about this now, our foundation renewal, but this is something that they're willing to help us pay for feasibility studies to assess which school properties would be prime candidates for ground source heat pumps getting to the space for.
Right. So based on that, based on a lot of the facts, and yes, we can talk Rhode Island League, we do a lot of public start speaking. I've been invited to 2 workshops at conferences, both in the Boston area, this week and next week, that deal specifically with solar and with heat pumps. On both, that's great. So we're up there looking for money, and I know so and Kevin talking to the Bar Foundation. That was a surprise. Oh, good evening. For the energy guide, involved in that. So we have our hand in everything. I think that's the next big push. Now that we know we've got this pipeline for solar, let's look at a pipeline for electrification.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, it was generally in the plans, but I don't see it hitting as a line item yet. So I just wanted to better understand.
Yeah, it's built into the public property project budgets. So like the new fire station, for example, they just electrified those the renovations. So they are building in electrification into the project.
And the Green Revolving Fund relies on electric upgrades to buildings, electrification of systems, and efficiency and renewables. So when we sit down with John and Anthony and they're saying, hey, we have to replace the boiler in firehouse, we can say, no, you use a heat pump, we can subsidize, or we can find the difference in that. So it can be a multi-year process.
I mean, just to conclude for your entire team, sort of picking up on what Chairman Sanchez said, you're doing an incredible amount with a small staff. We understand that you are creating great opportunity for this city. Eventually, there's going to be limits to that. I think that we all acknowledge that. So I, just want to really commend you for making the most of our resources, but also your human resources to get an incredible amount done. I appreciate the title changes. They're important. And, I hope that the city is doing what it can to keep the staff together and keep it moving forward. Thank you.
That was a lot nicer said than. Councilman Boyce?
Actually, just a segue still on this point of, first, I share everyone's sentiment about how great you all are. And you are similar to what my colleagues have said, you are a small and mighty team. And I was wondering with the Green Revolving Fund and how we've dedicated $3 million in seed funding, and we'll continue to invest in that fund through savings we will accrue. Is there a component or mechanism in that fund where it allows for a small percentage of administrative cost to expand the workforce in your department?
Well, right now, that's a great question. Right now, what we've identified, we've worked with Sustainable Endowment Institute that has experience in launching these green revolving funds. And based on the size that we have, we can operationalize it with existing staff that we have and adopt software. Software is really critical for how we track. And then, of course, we need to still identify where we outsource. Like, for example, the finance department already has under contract a company called CLA that will help us file tax credits. So it's just, again, us looking at what capabilities and things we have with the department, what makes sense based on the infancy of the green revolving fund. But if the fund, in future years were to grow exponentially, then that will look differently, right, in terms of how we administer that and how many people we need.
So, like, if it does grow, so there is a legal mechanism where you can use some of that to grow the department, is that some?
Well, the way that the Green Revolving Fund, the operational guide for it or charter, and the ordinance is written, is to manage the Green Revolving Fund. We just need to make sure that enough of it revolves. But we have been talking about, operationally, like building in some costs, right?
Oh.
You don't see the software reflected in the IT budget. You might see it in that Green Revolving Fund, but it would be significant compared to the amount of savings that are coming back into the fund.
This is probably just a comment, Chief, I think you may have said, I probably could have misheard this, but I think over 3 years, sustainability has reduced their operating budget by 30%, or was that, or 39?
On the average, they reduced the actual cost from 2026 to the proposed budget this year by nearly 39%. Actual to the proposed.
That's amazing.
The 3-year average has shown, compared to this year's proposed budget, at least a 23% reduction.
Wow. I was talking to a resident about municipal government in general. Sorry to go off track here, but there is obviously no matter, sometimes the council, the administration will have different philosophical views on how government should administer services and where those services should go. And I keep telling residents, municipal government, there's not a lot of wiggle room in terms of, we have to pass a balanced budget. And I bring this up because how do we message out to residents that we're not just spending willy-nilly here, we're actually saving, we're trying to be efficient with tax dollars. How do we use those success stories to kind of tone down the cynicism and skepticism, which I share? That's a really loaded question, but you being in finance for all these years, how do you navigate that sort of like, how do you communicate that to the casual resident?
So, as esteemed finance colleagues have often said, starting with our budget officer, 94%, maybe now 96% of the city's budget is non-discretionary. It's fixed, and it's rising fixed. And that's based on the reasons why. If it's wages, it's wage contracts that span across the bargaining units. If it's pension, it's based on an amortization schedule that's declared. If it's self-managed healthcare, same thing. Savings in one department, while it would be helpful if they could retain it within that department, are generally not done that way. We give the department, I will say this about finance, we tell this to every department, the directors, their fiscal officers. Our role is not to lower their budgets, to defend it and make sure that it's a document that is sustainable, no pun intended, and making certain that we can support that budget. But if there's a savings one year or the other from one department because there was an ideal program, that savings flows into the general fund budget in total, and it is used to offset rising costs somewhere else. It is a process. While it's not scientific, it is clearly an art of doing that. And great credit goes to the 2 finance directors and their staff as we work as a team. But how do you message that to the citizens? Clearly, this year is an example, a 1.75% increase over the prior year. And with due respect to other communities, as you've seen around Rhode Island, what happens when budgeting is not done accurately. A budget that's approved today, or let's just say in the month of June, is only as good as the day it's approved. And not because of neglect or because of incompetency. one bad budget break could throw the budget off the entire year, and you have to sustain and live with that change throughout the year. To the credit of the finance department and all directors throughout the city, they manage their budget microscopically. It's amazing the process they do and gain the maximum efficiency from that budget, including new programs, new program initiatives. I too step back and say it's amazing what we do. And for the record, we've had 11 consecutive balanced or surplus budgets in a rising cost economy. Just on the pension alone, 13 consecutive years of 100% pension payment. That's an achievement that I think we don't give enough credit to. Why is that important? I could just digress for a moment. This will make the 14th consecutive year when we finish 2026, and the budget under consideration measures the 15th consecutive year of 100% pension payment. If you go back 35 years, then come forward 20, in those 20 years forward, only 2 out of 20 years was the right money put into the pension plan. And it does make a significant difference, and we're seeing a change in the funded percentage of the pension plan. So discipline is what takes the balanced budgets, and there is a story there, no question about it. Residents should be proud of the fact that the work that goes on in all departments, just what you heard tonight through public property and sustainability, is amazing. I sit here myself and applaud them for the work that they do. It's good work.
I gotta say, your presentation, I'm not a finance person, but I will say, coaching must have been, you make me want to run through a wall. You just kept saying that. But I was inspired by numbers, but that was great. That was great.
Thank you.
Seriously. Thank you. Thank you for.
Don't run through any walls, please.
No.
I only have one question. Does anyone else have anything? My question is there any timeline that we should be aware of for the climate justice updates?
Yes, that's a great question. So we've onboarded the consultants that are going to work with us on updating that plan. That includes Civic, GZA, both work on the Rockport master planning process, and another organization called BW Research Group that has an expertise in equity and justice and energy and workforce development. So we've onboarded them successfully. We've also started meeting with the RNJC, the Racial and Environmental Justice Committee, who co-developed the plan. Now they're co-updating the plan with us. So right now we are aiming for end of June to kick off a community event to talk about the climate justice plan update, and then after that kick off a series of events. So where we want to be by the end of the year is having a draft plan that the community is revising and making sure it jives with the engagement that we've done, and then have a final update released January of 2027.
So, yeah, I know there's a lot of excitement around that. So really
It's exciting, right? We have a nationally recognized climate justice plan, and now we're updating it to ensure that we can continue implementing it over the next 5 years and years to come. So it's really exciting.
I think we're all set. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Not too bad.
Thank you.
Actually, have run through a wall. Like, don't put these points in just points. Yeah, I do not like being wrong. I was just like, why do you do this? I like have major panic attacks. Should I do this? I just definitely go.
Motion to enter exhibit 18 into the record. Motion made by Councilman Peterson, seconded by Councilman Taylor. All those in favor? Aye, ayes have it. We are not gonna rush through this, but we are gonna go through it in a timely manner. Councilman Taylor has other responsibilities.
I will do my best. Their budget can be found on page 117 of your budget book. I am joined today by, again, our Chief of Policy and Resiliency, Sheila Normandy, our Director of Housing and Human Services, Emily Friedman, our Director of Housing and Community Development, Melissa McDermott, Director of Human Services, Dr. Rachel Ferrara, which is a new accomplishment. We all and our age-friendly community director, Sue Rubio. That is a lot of crew here tonight. The fiscal year 2027 proposed budget for HHS is $2,377,459. This is a $9,963 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget, or a little under 0.5%. It's important to note that this is a nominal increase in large part because rent is being removed from the budget, so it's not an indication of a reduction in funding overall. Total fiscal year 2026 salaries are budgeted at $695,148. We are budgeting cost of living increases of $17,379, step increases of $1,203. For total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries of $713,737. This department does have a very large quantity of grant funded staff. So I will want to say that there is a slight increase in funding that is shifting over to the general fund. I believe it's 0.1% of someone's salary is going from a grant to the general fund, so a very small amount of dollars are being shifted over. But I think we can agree that they're doing a considerable amount of work and that those grant programs are very important. Their budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. Most of their costs are considered discretionary. First up is fees not classified. This is staff parking for any non-union staff who needs to park at the Civic Center garage. Postage has been level funded at $1,800. Advertising and marketing is $15,000. That's for the Eat, Play, Learn program and considered a fixed cost, as most of the city's advertising costs are for public meeting purposes. Dues and subscriptions have a small increase, and this covers any sort of necessary special memberships as well as the grant management software. Printing has been increased by $15,000, and this is so that we can print additional housing report and other annual reports. Because I've found that having printed, logoed, nice quality materials have been handy for them in promoting their work. There is a reduction of $75,000 to program expense. Their contract services are being increased by $133,000. This provides behavioral health outreach, peer programming, age-friendly programming. This also has the funding for the acute community needs fund and fair housing and tenant education that we'll talk about on another slide. Professional development has a small reduction at $2,500 based on estimated needs in fiscal year 2026. Under the supply line items, office supplies and stationery have been level funded. Again, the primary reduction here is for rent. Due to the 444 Westminster Street, we will no longer be allocating rents to our departments.
Thank you. Good question, Crystal. I'm sorry if you said it. What is the 75,000 deduction in program expense?
$75,000 reduction in expense is tied to, do you know this? Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. Contract. Got it. Thank you, Director Friedman. So there was a reallocation of $75,000 that was moved out of program expense and into contract services.
What was that?
It was for the housing support matching grants. Is that correct?
Yes, so we differentiate program expenses, typically internal city programs. Contract services are typically services where we would issue an RFP, and so we just simply reclassified for the sake of transparency and consistency. But the line item remains unchanged.
Any other questions on this?
Yes.
So lastly, the 2027 budget does propose some investments in housing supports, the vast majority of which are being funded from the sale of 2 city assets. So this is just a slide from our budget overview to remind you all that that is an investment we're proposing for next fiscal year. Assuming, or once those sales are finalized and those purchases are executed, The city will be submitting an ordinance requesting that those funds be transferred out of the capital asset fund into the general fund. And we will be budgeting a transfer to the and we will be budgeting the expenditure of these funds. And that wraps it up.
That's good.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Director?
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to join in this evening to present on behalf of City Department of Housing and Services. The work of HHS reflects, I believe, our shared priorities, and we look forward to highlighting quickly the department's achievements for FY26, as well as our strategic priorities for FY27. As noted, I'm joined by Division Directors Sue Robio, Melissa McDermott, and Dr. as of Friday, Rachel Carlton. So as you're well familiar, our goal is to ensure that Providence residents have access to safe housing, essential support services, and pathways to long-term stability. We do this through direct housing investments, community partnerships, public health initiatives, and human services programming. With the goal of strengthening our neighborhoods, expanding opportunity, improving resident quality of life, and preserving and creating affordable housing throughout the city. So in FY26, some quick accomplishments we wanted to share and highlight with you all. The department played a critical role in the city's ability to respond rapidly and effectively to emerging community needs. Notably, we coordinated the implementation of the city's emergency food plan during the SNAP disruption that affected thousands of Providence residents, including over 16,000 children. For advanced planning, cross-departmental coordination, and strong partnerships with our community-based partners, state agencies, and philanthropic partners, we were able to quickly identify needs, mobilize resources, and support emergency food access through the city. We have also served an active role in the mental health and community recovery work associated with the Brown tragedy, including working to partner in the establishment of the New Resilience Center. We've partnered with Department of People and Culture to roll out a new recovery-friendly workplace policy citywide. We completed the city's first annual Housing Progress Report, which provides a transparent framework for measuring progress towards addressing the housing shortage by tracking housing production, preservation, our direct investments, and household supports across Providence. And if you don't have a copy, happy to distribute some.
I'm trying to remember, has that been given to council?
It's here digitally, but not in printed copies.
Yeah, any reports like this, if we could get printed copies, we would really appreciate it.
We were able to complete and achieve timely HUD approval of the city's new 5-year consolidated plan. We are now advancing our year 2 CDBG home and opera investments. That budget is currently before the City Council for second passage, which includes the creation of a new net payment assistance program for low-income homebuyers, continued affordable housing investments and home repairs, and critical support for community-based organizations that serve refugee and immigrant populations, unhoused residents, and uninsured or underinsured individuals during the increasingly uncertain federal funding. We have also completed year 1 of the deployment of our opioid settlement funding, distributing over $1.2 million, guided by the city's overdose prevention strategy. With our first annual opioid settlement fund annual report going to print shortly. We look forward to sharing that with the council as soon as it's available. Some highlights we can preview. We're proud to say that those investments have reached more than 3,000 individuals through funded programs and services. Those partners have connected over 1,000 people to additional care, treatment, housing, and recovery supports. We've provided 625 housing supports and housing-related services in recovery, trained 635 individuals in Narcan administration and overdose response, and supported 461 people with recovery services and peer support. So again, that a complete report will be released in the coming weeks. We look forward to sharing that with you, and that's the first round of investments over the itself. We also are advancing to advance the age-friendly plan through new programs and initiatives, and we are developing a resource guide for seniors and also current. So FY 27, we are continuing to advance our budget and our works for funding the city general fund, state awards, federal grant funds, and private partnerships. As noted by finance, this FY 27 proposed budget largely reflects only modest operational adjustments based on actual expenditures and programmatic needs. Importantly, the department continues to realize operational efficiencies and cost savings resulting from our 2024 department unification through shared staffing structures, coordinated administration, and streamlined operations. As it's been a theme of this evening, diversification and continued coordination of funding sources is going to become increasingly important as we continue to navigate uncertainty around federal safety net programs and competitive federal funding. So what we continue to work towards is shifting initiatives wherever possible to multi-year awards to improve continuity and reduce administrative burden for our partners. We are working creatively and strategically to grade funding streams to maintain service continuity, adapt to evolving federal guidance and eligibility restrictions. For example, and Dr. Farrar is incredibly adept at planning ahead for these things and anticipating changing federal guidance. We recently received an update that we now have limited reimbursement ability for certain overdose prevention supplies, such as fentanyl test strips. So by coordinating multiple funding sources, we're better positioned to avoid service disruptions and maintain continuity of care. So there is a lot of behind the scenes movement of budget so that there is no disruption to any external program. So that takes a lot of effort on behalf of the fiscal staff and Dr. Farrar and others to plan ahead for those changes and make sure that we're prepared and have thought through to avoid any disruptions in care. So as has been outlined to you all, there are some new proposals for some additional housing stabilization supports. So we are seeking to create a new first known municipal rental assistance program structure. That ordinance is I believe in front of this committee shortly for consideration. Currently it's proposed for $1 million in anticipated funding. We are releasing an RFP to identify qualified community partners subject to funding approval. We'll be able to administer that program and get those dollars out to households in need. We are also seeking to utilize funding to review the city's eviction defense pilot that has been incredibly successful. We're looking to reinvest in the Eviction Defense Collaborative. We are seeking to add a new line item for landlord tenant education. We'll continue to invest in the settlement funds and private funds in recovery for municipal housing. We are continuing to expand community-based support services and seek to sustain them by strengthening partnerships with local organizations and bringing funding to provide comprehensive support services. We are working to continue to improve our operational effectiveness and our accountability in our service delivery. We're continuing to implement and refine our measures to monitor and evaluate program outcomes, ensuring transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement in service delivery. We are making a proactive effort to develop resource guides and external facing reporting to ensure that our work and available resources are known and accessible for our constituents. Part of this budget also includes a transition from senior services to the age-friendly PDD division. You want to speak to?
We're changing the names to better reflect community inclusiveness, focusing more on health and wellness. As you know, the state's changed their name to the Office of Healthy Aging. So it's kind of a movement that's happening to take away the stereotype of seniors and help folks age, older adults age at all stages of age. Not just older or, there's a lot of older folks from 50, as we know, right? So the name change kind of includes everyone. And it's, it's said that if you create a city, an age-friendly city for 8 to 80-year-olds, it includes everybody. So it'll be a good city for everyone.
Is there a cost associated to
So this transition is not anticipated to have any general fund impact. We are going to be updating materials and collateral through the sort of normal replacement cycles. And so in this budget, ultimately the changes are made to titles and the name of the department to be more modern and inclusive, as Director Rubio mentioned.
Awesome.
So to elaborate a little bit more on the few new initiatives that are proposed, we did try to be measured in our request for new initiatives, given the current budget constraints, but we did propose the new general fund investments of $15,000 for landlord tenant education, with the goal of supporting targeted fair housing testing and proactive knowing rights education. We anticipate if funding is approved to issue an RFP to qualified legal aid or fair housing agencies for services such as flagging scofflaw rental listings, tenant union technical assistance, workshops and fair housing tests to ensure state and local laws are known and followed. We are also proposing a new line for $25,000 for acute community needs, which would be a fund to address acute unforeseen gaps in basic needs services. Example, surge funding to food pantries or meal sites in event of a future staff interruption. In the current chaotic federal climate, it's helpful to have a fund available as a backstop in the event of funding or benefit pauses or government shutdowns. Having dollars ID'd in emergency plans like the emergency food plan queued up means we can be nimble when we continue to receive these types of destabilizing disruptions. As noted, with your pending authorization and a close partnership, we are seeking to create our first municipal rental assistance program and renew funding for the right to council pilot. We ideally would have a vendor selected for June 29th, with the goal of having that program, the rent program, operational sometime in July. So I think in closing, our work is fundamentally collaborative, and our progress depends on continued partnership with the city council, community organizations, service providers, and residents. We appreciate your continued support and partnership as we work together to strengthen housing stability, improve public health outcomes, and ensure Providence residents can access services and opportunities they need to thrive. So we thank you for your time and consideration this evening, and welcome to the questions.
Thank you, Ellen. We really appreciate all the work that you and your department do for the residents of our city. I know this is here and we just have an amazing team over there. I have a couple of questions, but committee members have.
Yeah.
Of course, go ahead. Councilwoman Peterson.
Thank you. So mine are kind of all over this. I'll start with a few and hopefully conversation brings the other ones forward. With regards to age-friendly PVD, I think it's a phenomenal idea. Well done. Are you currently working with the rec department to facilitate any sort of partnerships and use of space? Or what ideas are?
We actually just held a pilot program at Elmwood Community Center, Step Into Spring, where we invited seniors in. We worked with Meals on Wheels. They sponsored the lunch program. We brought in Tai Chi, salsa dancing, a nutritionist from Meals on Wheels, and we had like a 4-hour program that was very, very successful. So we're really excited about it, and we're hoping to create a monthly, program there, if not like maybe a 6-week summer program.
Oh, right there. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you were there.
Yeah, I can say all those lovely things that I mentioned, and I was there also. in my day job capacity at the food. It was awesome though. The salsa dancing scene, the folks that got bussed in, so they took care of transportation, which is a huge issue sometimes for older. So that's another reminder to make sure that folks are promoting and utilizing the bus services that the department has.
100%. I just as a follow up to that. No, that's okay. I'm glad to hear about that. When Rex came and spoke with us, I had suggested the idea, and I'm not sure if you guys are already working on this, so I apologize if I'm stepping into something that's already kind of in the works. But we have these wonderful pools that we were utilizing and getting ready for the summertime. And I think it's such a great idea to be able to support the seniors and having the opportunity to be able to come into our pools whenever possible. We had started at Fagnoli a few years back. This was before my time here on council. But an initiative just to have them come and enjoy the splash pad.
Yeah.
Because it was something that some of the residents were like, well, we don't really have anywhere to go. I know transportation can often be a barrier, but if there's a way to facilitate some of that, it would just be so an additional support to our neighbors. Ward 14 has a large number of aging in place neighbors. And one of the things that I find as costs continue to rise and affordability becomes a continued problem, especially for our seniors, is that they don't really, outside of their homes, they're not really doing a whole lot.
Right.
And I think we have such a great program already in place, and we have these services available. I am looking for ways to get the word out to my neighbors about all these great programs. So if we can work together on something, I would absolutely love to. I think it's, I just think it's a great resource that we use, and I know that would benefit so many more, especially in my ward. So thank you for that. 3 questions for you, Director. We're considering $15,000 into landlord-tenant education. Do we have anything in place currently already for that, or do we have any funding for that at all?
We cannot. This is really to pilot a direct, I think this will be our first direct investment in putting out that type of mailer workshop opportunity. We have invested in CDBG in local legal aid clinics through DARE and the Adventure Defense Collaborative. But we know at the federal level that fair housing is being deprioritized. And so this is an opportunity to sort of pilot and see what the what our partners like South Coast Fair Housing or the Eviction Defense Collaborative could offer our community in terms of additional resources.
And then, so in follow up to, I was writing things down as you were talking. So you had also talked about acute community needs and a $25,000 investment in that. Obviously, for being able to implement an emergency food plan, I think is huge, especially right now. We're seeing growing numbers of people waiting at our food pantries. We're seeing it on Branch Avenue, the one at your neighborhood food pantry on Branch Avenue, and I'm sure the other ones are as well. I know from a grants perspective, what you said is absolutely on point. There's much less opportunity to be able to fund resources of that nature. $25,000. So what are you envisioning with $25,000? I know I'm not saying that I'm saying it's not enough, but not in a way of like saying, no, you need to do more. Like, what do you envision being able to support with $25,000?
So this past fall, when the SNAP interruption occurred, one element of our emergency food plan where we located a gap was the need for, we were able to work with philanthropic partners to surge resources directly to the Rhode Island Food Bank, which is sort of the central hub for purchasing and distributing food. But we knew at these sort of frontline sites that there were these ancillary costs and specific needs that were not being met. And so we were able to very quickly identify some contingency funding and deploy mini grants to these organizations to address things like dumpster costs. We know a lot of these food pantries rely on volunteer staff. So paying overtime, paying stipends to staff, other transportation costs, culturally specific food items that you can't get through, mass purchased food. And so there's opportunities where we find that we can be very effective in a coordinating role, and then also to identify where those unmet needs are. And sometimes a small amount of money really can make a difference to ensure that, all of those, I think it's 23 food distribution sites were able to, there wasn't any sort of gap that they would prevent them from distributing that increased level of food. So we can be very creative with a small amount of money. So the shorter version is shorter.
I certainly can appreciate that. Growing up with limited resources allows you to make sure that every penny is accounted for. So I can certainly understand. I just wanted to truly just understand, because I know that our need is growing. And while we're trying to do as much as we can with the very little that we have, for me, being able to support as many as possible with that small amount is obviously, I'm sure for everybody, is the most important thing, right? So kind of what that looked like was the question.
How many of the mini grants did we,
It was 23.
they were how much each?
$2,000.
2,000?
Yeah, the big range from 2,000 to 2,500.
How many applied?
I believe it was, I could give you an exact figure, but I believe it was 25, and those that were deemed ineligible because to follow the process and be transparent and be in accordance with city policy and ordinance. We did find other ways to direct some funding to those organizations, but there were very few that were deemed ineligible at the initial time of application.
Sorry.
It's okay. And then for now, my last question is, it's the eviction fund. Do we have funding in place already for that, and we're just adding more to it?
So we had a significant investment in ARPA to pilot that program. That ARPA, as we know, is sunsetting. The Eviction Defense Collaborative with Providence Awareness is a partnership between the Center for Justice, Rhode Island Legal Services, Housing Works Rhode Island, and DARE to provide legal services. They have been able to get a HUD grant to support some of that work, as well as state funding. The state funding was also ARPA, and so they are going to be seeing potentially a need to constrain their services. And so not only was it a successful program, it's a program that deserves to be expanded. And so we're seeking $500,000 to continue that very important work. So it's right now.
Sorry, everyone. Awesome, thank you. Housing News, do you have some?
Just one question slash observation. First of all, I just wanted to shout out Sue constituent. So, and this really is for you and sort of inspired by sort of, many other folks in Ward 2, where there are also lots of folks who are aging in place. And in this case, aging in place in places that are too big. And so I just want to raise that with understanding there's nothing in this year's budget that necessarily addresses it, but this is since I have you here. I suspect that's a phenomenon in many places in the city, but I can just speak for the area I know well. We have a real crisis of seniors living in homes that they would like to leave and sell to younger families and nowhere to go. And so I just say this with an urging of anything, and you're all sitting here right now, if we coordinate with each other, anything that we can do as a city to create, age-friendly housing in the neighborhoods where people already live, I think would be really transformative to our city. So any influence we as a city have to push that lever, I think will make a gigantic difference. And, would love to be sitting here next year and hearing about some initiatives that could make that happen. That's just my plea, really.
I can say and volunteer that we do have the CDBG home repair program in the CDBG budget, which helps to make home modifications that would allow seniors to age in place if that's appropriate. The DIS revolving fund similarly can help seniors address code violations. We do hope to and are seeking approval right now from General Assembly for a $25 million housing bond.
Yeah.
If the Providence Housing Trust is recapitalized, we do provide preference to projects that incorporate universal design and serves vulnerable populations. So that would include senior housing and housing that could be modified to be fully accessible for a population that we know is aging now and is going to continue to grow at that population will grow at an accelerating rate. So there's a few initiatives and we look forward to circling back to reporting out.
That's awesome. And I want to follow up with you all to make sure I understand the programs that currently exist.
Absolutely.
So that when people reach out to me, I have them at my fingertips to share. Thank you.
Sorry, Councilman Newsom? Councilman Lewis?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the, I think the eviction defense fund slash program, how many residents have been served over the years through the when it was ARPA funded? And if I could just add another question related to that, which this really gets in the weeds, so I have no way to don't have the answer, but didn't. And I guess my follow up is how many of those evictions were a result of non sort of payment of rent?
That's a great question. Okay. Okay, so in FY 25, the program assisted 652 households, which was 1,546 people. I don't have the specific percentages, but the outcomes were prevention or delay of eviction, retained eligibility for subsidized housing, and navigation assistance to locate alternative housing. And pull a more recent performance report to get you the sort of breakdowns if we have those percentages.
Yeah, I think when we have the rent fund ordinance, I think we can definitely dive into some of this. I'm just going to trail through it.
I actually want to segue into that. I had some feelings about administering the rental assistance program through outsourcing it to a nonprofit, or I think the ordinance even allows for the for-profit entity to do it. If this, I guess my question is, if this is the first time that our city has been known at least to do something like this, what are we going to look for in a partner to be able to be confident that they can do this in a way that is efficient, responsible, ethical? And the other question I would add to that is, will that partner be stationed in City Hall to administer that program?
So the RFP is drafted with to be very prescriptive on what type of partner we're looking for. It is we are seeking a nonprofit partner, an established community partner who is already operating similar services in the community and has the ability to offer accessible services, so multilingual services, online applications, in-person applications, dedicated staff to assist with preparing and completing the applications. We are already in preliminary discussions with 311 to discuss how we might integrate 311 with a direct sort of referral pathway into the program. Ultimately, the goal will have the program is going to have, for the ordinance, very specific guidelines on who can be served and the types of qualifications to be and administrative requirements that will flow with the dollars. It will be a performance-based contract, and the goal is really to have a qualified community partner who is also prepared to make appropriate service referrals. We can expect if a family is housing unstable or experiencing housing instability, they're probably also having difficulty affording childcare and affording food and affording their utilities. And so having an organization that can make those direct referrals in a very streamlined way is really the goal. And that's why we haven't opted to house it internally at HHS. Our goal would really be to work with a community partner who's already doing this work, and so that's a very seamless integration for families who really don't have time to be going from agency to agency, and navigating a complicated network of resources.
Director, can you send us that RFP once it's
Absolutely.
Councilman Morris, you want to say?
I guess I think the administrative cost after the what's the total? Was it? I want to say close to $1 million. In terms of administrative costs or am I can be making that up?
So
after 4 years.
So we did implement cost cap for indirect or admin cost of 20%, which is a similar cap that you would see on federally funded programs to try to have alignment. The federal direct cost rate is about 15% right now. So we're expecting between 15 and 20% to be the overhead to implement the program, and the other 80% to be direct cash assistance to clients.
And but the total of that after the entirety of the program, what's that total number for the 20% off? administrative costs?
Right now, we only have a proposed budget for FY 27 of $1 million. And so that would be less than 200,000 for administrative, or overhead for the delivery of the program and 800,000 for the direct, assistance to clients.
I have a quick question on the last part. What's the thought process behind, because how the ordinance is written was that it's, paid directly to the property owner or the property manager? What's the thought process, or what's the reason we can't give it to the tenants directly? And I ask this because there's a bunch of different concerns, but I guess like the primary concern or what I would like to see is someone that is transitioning from, having roommates or homelessness, just needs a little bit of money for security deposit. They wouldn't be able to use this fund as written.
That's helpful feedback. I think as we're sort of reviewing the ordinance, that's certainly something we can take under advisement and discuss further. The goal was really to provide sort of with best practices, being informed by those various rental programs that operate during COVID, to pay directly to the third party that is owed. So in that case, if they have located an apartment, we would pay the landlord the security deposit, make sure that it's documented by a valid, legitimate legal lease, or if there were, for example, rental arrears owed in housing, and there's an eviction case proceeding in housing court, our goal would be to invest those dollars and ensure that by paying the landlord directly, the landlord also agrees to drop the eviction filing. And so by paying the party that's owed, for example, a utility company as well, we were viewing it as a better avenue in order to intervene and advocate on behalf of the impacted family.
Often when you pay the person directly, if they're on benefits that have income limits, that's counted as income. And so you're putting their benefits at jeopardy because that looks like they've received additional income for the month. Or alternatively, if you pay it directly to who is owed, then that doesn't count against the person's income for that month. So there is a lot of benefit to paying it directly to the landlord versus giving it to the tenant to be the middleman and protecting additional benefits that they may have.
Thank you, Doctor. I guess because you mentioned the director, what mechanisms would be in place? Say a landlord is owed certain funds, we give them the allocated, I think, up to 3,000. Is it? I guess what mechanisms are in place that like they don't proceed with the eviction? If there's other, legal avenues for them to do so.
Right. I think that's our goal of having these all work as a stabilization package together that we would have, in exchange for receiving the financial assistance that the landlord would agree to stop something that they would not pursue an eviction for a period of time. And ultimately, the goal would be to have this nonprofit organization who's administering the program be monitoring for that exact scenario and ensuring that they're making appropriate referrals for eviction defense, or other services that are appropriate to monitor and prevent that.
Councilman Taylor, do you have
Yeah, I got a few questions and statements, I guess. So it's $1 million minus 200,000, so we have 800,000 available for the eviction. Is that correct?
So the 20% is a cap. Ultimately, this is going to be a competitive proposal, and so if an organization can operate a leaner program, they will score better in the RFP.
Would it be 800,000 roughly? I'm not holding that
I
number.
think realistically, I would expect most nonprofit organizations would seek the sort of indirect cost rate of about 15%. It's sort of industry standard.
Okay, so I'll use 800,000 because that's what I figured.
Sure.
So if it's 800,000 minus the 3,000, because we get the 3,000, so we can actually help 266 people. Roughly. But you're telling us that in 2025 or whatever the year, it was 600 some people. So we're not even really helping half the people. That is not really. I'm making a statement, and here's the problem I have with this. And I had a problem years ago with the reparations that we did. So we did the reparations payments, and then we're going to do all this, we're going to give all this, and then come to find out when it was all said and done, the people that really needed it, they weren't even included in it. And I'm just, throwing that out there that those are the people that put in for it. And my other two concerns on this is, one is I hope it doesn't turn into like a COVID. Remember when people all applied for COVID? Not really in the city, but in the state wise, we found out that I use Remington House because I used to go there and eat all the time in East Greenwich, and they used the money saying, "Oh yeah, we were open, we did all this, and we paid all this." Come to find out, they ended up taking money that they didn't deserve, and now they closed. So that is a big concern. And also another concern to me is me and Miguel are friends, right? I've been renting from Miguel. He's a landlord, right? I'm just, so me and Justin, whoever, I don't care who I use, but we're friends. We're friends, right? So now I've been renting. I'm not behind, but now we work out a deal where, hey, listen, this is coming up, and we can get 3,000, right? And I'm going way off, but I mean, there's people out there that think like this, and they'll say, "Oh, you get 1,500, I get 1,500." And we'll try to do this. How do we stop that? Because we don't have. In other words, if this comes out, so like I'm renting. Let's say I'm renting from somebody, and then we know it's coming. Landlord calls me, "Hey, listen, do me a favor. Don't pay rent for the next 4 or 5 months, and then we're going to come back, and then you could pay me. Put the money aside. We're going to work a deal where I'll knock it off 50." Like I just don't. I don't trust people. I don't trust people in this. It's like free money because me, I work for everything I need. And I work, and I've always worked since I was 16 years old. This is like a freebie we're giving to people. And the people that really need it, we don't know if we're like helping those people. Because there's going to be 266 people. And let's say there's 267 people in this room. We're helping everybody but one person. And come to find out at the end, that one person might really need it more than the other 266. So that's the problem I have, because we're not helping the number of people that really need the help. And is some people going to take advantage of it? I think so. That's my personal opinion. And that bothers me. So it's not really a question. It's just a statement that I'm putting out there that I hope we think about this when we do vote on it, because
Jack, before you have something to add, I'd just like to say I think it's a good conversation piece that definitely should be discussed. But I wouldn't, let the reality, because it's a reality. Any social benefit, whether it's SNAP, Medicaid, there's people that unfortunately cheat the system. But we're not going to penalize everyone because there's a small few. So I think, what we can do is work with said vendor to make sure that all the necessary checks and balances are in place. Councilwoman Peterson, and then we'll let Director respond. So it's a good conversation.
I'm not really questioning.
Respond, actually. That's okay.
It's a good conversation. It's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. You can respond. It's okay. I can ask my questions after. As the chair well said, we have built in safeguards based on lessons learned in COVID. Also, as administrators of federal funds, which are subject to intense scrutiny, we have many of the best practices in place to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. This is the means tested program, which you will need to demonstrate that you are a person who is a low-income household. There is prioritization for people earning 60% of AMI or below, so lower-income households. We are looking for verification of enrollment in other means tested programs like SNAP recipients. We also are going to be looking for third-party verification of the need, and so we're going to be looking for mortgage statements that show past due balances to prevent foreclosure, looking for past due utility statements, looking for sworn statements from a landlord that you are in rental arrears or evidence of an eviction notice of filing. So we have taken steps and will continue to work with any selected vendor to ensure that we have all the safeguards in place to ensure that there is no potential risks. And we do anticipate that the likelihood for that would be incredibly low. I would also note that we do anticipate that the approximately 266 will be households, not necessarily people. So based on the average that we're seeing in other comparable programs, we expect the average household size to be about 3 to 4 people. So this will be serving in excess of 1,000.
That's awesome. My question or comments on the rent fund. I think it's a good tool in our investments and policies when it comes to housing. But this is obviously funded with one-time dollars. Have there been any exercise that your department has done or research to see how we can make this annual or sustainable program?
That's work that we're actively doing. That would obviously be the goal, is that 1 million would be starting budget and that we would be able to continue to sustain it ongoing, because we don't expect that this particular need is going to ever really totally go away.
Until we pass our stabilization.
Can I?
No one needs to respond. No, my last question on this is, so obviously we have the housing trust fund, there's a revolving green fund now. Is there a world where revolving rent fund is possible?
Can we just fund it?
Well, I think
Well, the money's like leaving, so I'm just like,
No.
what, like, is there a stream that could?
Well, I think that's really the problem, right? Revolving funds rely on some sort of revenue stream to revolve in. So for example, with the green revolving fund, we have IRA credits. So we know we complete a project, we submit a tax return, we get that revenue back, it revolves back into the funds. I think at this point, we have not identified a source to revolve funds through. So just from like, it just couldn't be a revolving fund until we would identify how we would revolve those funds. In general, these are dollars going out to the community, and there's no way to recoup them. Rightfully so, they're intended to cost money, but I'm not aware of any, pot of funds available that we could use to replenish this from on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point, but I think, there's a lot of interest on the council to try to identify that pool funds, whether if it's not this year in the near future. So I think this is super, super important. Councilwoman Peterson and Councilman Royas.
Just saying, I proposed something that should have gone through, so whatever, we can discuss that at a different time. So with regards to rent relief, and I can share in the concerns that you have, Councilman Taylor. I think one of the things that as you were talking a little bit, I think one of the things that in the conversations around what rent stabilization looked like, and some of the reasons why, is this is just a little piece of food for thought. A lot of the conversation that I had with tenants in my neighborhood was around the fact that leases were month to month, and that was a huge concern, where they really couldn't alleviate some of the pressure. So I just wanted to flag that, because one of those things I feel like in an effort to try and support neighbors with relief, we need to be able to also see from the landlord to be able to actually make sure that they're providing a little bit of a more long-term lease so that we can support the neighbor. I just think that that's a point that I continue to think about as we're navigating all of this and what the complexity of our housing issues are. The need to go to RFP on this, I understand that there's people that can do all of this work for us, but I think that even at the 15% or even 15 or 20% overhead or administrative costs, I think is a little bit high, especially when you already have such a small number to be able to support as many neighbors as possible. Was there any thought to perhaps considering a position or two instead to maybe offset some of that, or thought of like the 15 to 20% as an RFP? Like, could we have done it? I just remember COVID relief funds, how many people it took to actually provide that service. It took a massive amount of work for people 18 to 24 months, if I'm not mistaken, and those were salaries, right? Those were actual wages that people were garnering through all of this. I'm just wondering if there isn't a more of an opportunity for us to do something to create a little bit more of a savings to then provide the tenants that would need it.
So we did certainly evaluate whether or not it would be more cost efficient to manage internally, determine that we would need we are running sort of at capacity right now and did not propose any new FTEs. As you noted, these programs do take a number of FTEs, especially if you want to offer as very hands-on multilingual program.
Yeah.
So we were not confident that we could manage it effectively at the internally at the city level. Our goal with putting out to a qualified partner is that they would already have staff capacity. For example, housing navigation staff, case managers already on staff that could we could get some economies of scale by having them leverage existing staff who are already working and providing referrals to other programs, already doing housing navigation, already working with landlords. So we do expect that this will be the most cost efficient proposal, and by putting it out to the competitive market to a number of qualified nonprofits, we do hope that we're going to get the leanest budget, the most efficient budget possible.
Thank you for that one. I want to pivot to just a couple of different questions.
Yeah, if you want.
You someone that even has more questions than right.
Yeah, I just have one question. Well, maybe a comment. I'm like struggling with the word qualified only because just working in the nonprofit world for so many years, I know a lot of our nonprofits, for understandable reasons, are at capacity, even in their workforce. And I'm really worried what they submit in the RFP and what's on paper might not deliver in practice. And I think this is a huge undertaking. I support it completely, but I'm really worried about any nonprofit's ability to administer something like this. And I know even for just, I understand like sort of like hoping that maybe, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but hoping nonprofits can sort of divide the workload in terms of existing employees, but it just seems that we have a vulnerable population on the verge of eviction, and I think the crisis is so immense that I'm not feeling confident, though maybe that will change once we get the application submitted. But I'm feeling anxiety over any nonprofit doing this in a way that sort of they're not going to drop the ball when it comes to vulnerable life in their hands. Yeah, these are nonprofits that already deal with vulnerable populations, but this just seems like a massive undertaking. Not really a question to respond, but I just want to put my make a statement about that.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilwoman Gibson.
Thank you. Okay. I have two final questions, and I promise I'm done. The $25 million bond. What are we proposing to do with the $25 million?
So that would propose to recapitalize the Providence Housing Trust Fund. As the council may recall, is the 2024, you updated the code of ordinances to reflect the rules and regulations pertaining to the use of those funds. Yes. So they would be deployed again for the development of affordable housing as defined by the code of ordinances. At the back of the housing report, it gives you, and Chairman Sanchez sees this often as a PRA member, there are tables that show exactly where every dollar that we've invested in the Housing Trust Fund to date have gone and been committed, and what types of housing were built as a result of those investments. So in total, we have deployed through ARPA and a prior housing bond approximately $55 million, which has supported more than 2,000 housing units, and of which about 1,600 were deed restricted affordable. So it has been tremendously effective, impactful program, and our goal is to continue the good work.
Thank you. I want to highlight, if I could, you guys recently hired somebody by the name of Steven Santos, who has a phenomenal background in understanding exactly how to do so many of these things, including aging in place. So I want to make sure that it was a side note thoughts. But one of the things that I think is, obviously, housing is a complex issue, and you guys are doing as much as you can with the limited resources you have. And I thank you for all of that, because there's so many moving parts to all of this. One of the things that I believe is it's not even discussed often enough anymore, is affordable homeownership. And I think that part of what we need to be doing with any of what we do is while we are supporting these opportunities and creating these measures to make sure that we need to also kind of find ways to segue our neighbors from subsidized housing into an opportunity of affordable home ownership, because I think that's often a part that we are not recognizing as an instrumental portion and component of affordability, and I'm a huge proponent of that. So if I can make any ask of just like in some of the work that you're doing for education and making people understand kind of the availability of funds and resources that are available, this is also a part that we are not utilizing enough of. And I think it's important to highlight that we can do that in so many of these programs that are already available. I think it's a great chance to build on another opportunity for neighbors in addition to all the affordability from the tenant perspective that we're doing. Which brings me to my next question. It's kind of a segue, but not really. I took a look at your report on the internet. It was actually very good. Thank you very much for this. I'm going to keep this because I still have more things that I want to review. Can you tell me roughly how many new affordable units are being built?
In our current development pipeline?
Yeah. It says 1,600 here, but then there's a different measure. And I just was like, I got not confused, but even in the last year, how many units have we permitted for in the last year?
Sure, I can speak. So the 1,600 relates to the investments directly tied to the Affordable Housing Trust. So that's the 55 million directly invested has translated to about roughly 1,600.
Got it.
Our current development pipeline, so it depends on if you want to go calendar year or fiscal year. So
whatever you think is easiest.
We just submitted, and you may have seen the state's first integrated housing report.
Yep.
So I believe, permitted or developed 778 new units, of which, when we ran the numbers, 22%, and this has been a consistent trend actually since FY23, that about 20%, 20 to 22% of the housing that we're building is deed restricted affordable.
60. I did read that at 60% AMI or less, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, all right, here's the challenge. 60% AMI at this in Providence right now is, for a family of 4, it's about 68,000. The average income for a Providence resident right now is under that. It's about 66,000. So if we're reserving 22% or roughly for 60% or less, but we still have half of our residents kind of making less than that, what are we doing to be able to facilitate a little, not saying that it's not enough, I'm just saying, what can we do? What more can we do? Because the numbers aren't, we need to be able to supply more, which supply is part of the conversation, but like, it's still not meeting the standard of what we need to be able to support neighbors that are not even, I mean, at 60% AMI at 68,000, we know many neighbors in all of our neighborhoods that are not even close to making anything like that. So
that's exactly right. But for, an average household in Providence, even affordable housing is still often out of reach. And so that's where we are subsidizing the direct development, but we also need to be subsidizing via layered subsidies and ongoing rental assistance, the actual cost to operate the unit. And so many times, we need to be actually pricing to 50% AMI or 30% AMI. So when we have put out our HUD dollars as well as the Providence Housing Trust Fund dollars, we continue to prioritize and preference those products that offer that deeper level of affordability. And typically it takes layered Providence Housing Authority, their profit-facing vouchers. A number of the projects you'll see in the back of the housing report also have product-based vouchers in them. We've been very glad to partner with the PHA on that initiative. We often have we are prioritizing really that 30% AMI permanent supportive housing when we can get it. I think you touched upon an ongoing need, and that's why I believe the council and the administration are both advocating with the State House this legislative session for a $25 million voucher program, which would provide project-based vouchers to those very low-income households. And so we're hopeful that this legislative session, that will be an additional tool in the toolbox, because again, You can only subsidize construction so
Right.
far before you also need to for very low income units, subsidize the ongoing operate. And so that's where it takes those layered subsidies, and that's where, we know that our public housing authorities their vouchers are fully utilized. And so we need to be thinking about, we know we're not getting more money for this from the federal government. And so that's where that advocacy of the State House is very critical right now to ensure that we also have ongoing rental assistance for those households that we know are never going to be, making more than a fixed income or are living with disabilities or are having difficulty affording even a 60%.
So $1 million in rent relief isn't really that enough to even.
Not the same programs. I think we view these all as a continuum of programs.
Right.
The rent program that's been proposed in the ordinance that's in front of you is really for that one time, these sort of asset limited households who, are experiencing a one-time disruption. I was struck when recently reaching out to the Eviction Defense Collaborative to ask, what's your average past due rent for a client that comes to you for eviction defense? And they said $2,400. So somebody could potentially lose their home and have an eviction on their record for $2,400. And so we know that programs like this rent fund, while we can't serve everyone, are going to have a direct, meaningful impact to prevent eviction, to help people get caught up on their mortgages and prevent foreclosure, to get caught up and get their utilities turned back on. But it is not the program, if somebody is making 30% AMI, that's not the program that's going to be targeted.
No, I agree with you. I just think that what we're seeing is a consistent struggle of multi-level situations that require us to be extremely hands-on in a very layered approach. And I think you guys are tapping into all of that. I just think that we still have a lot more to go to achieve that. And part of the discussion with regards to the construction of it is that it takes time, right? So by the time all of these things, I'm hoping are, super successful in the way that we're still helping and enabling people to be able to reach that goal of being able to obtain one of those newer deed restricted apartments, although we still know that it's not nearly enough to be able to commit to the dense needs that we have. Thank you for your help.
Councilman Peterson?
I'm good.
Thank you for touching on that, because even I look at my own personal finances. I make $75,000 a year, and I live almost paycheck to paycheck. So I really emphasize this work that we do for the people that need it the most, because it's dire out there. So anything that we can do to move our community forward, definitely have members on the council to advocate and invest and politic in that way. The only thing I have last in this committee, Councilman Taylor, you're all set. Councilman Davidson, you're all set. The only last question I have, Crystal, going forward, is there any way to break down the contractual services, just so we're aware of what those
Like the individual.
contracts, I guess, like,
We can give you a copy of like the.
because it seems like there's some pretty important programs that are being funded using these, and it kind of relates to us just being aware of where money is being invested, so we can communicate and message that in a way that is digestible to our residents.
Yeah.
So it seems like paired programming. What is paired programming again?
There is our Providence Alternative Integrated Response and Emergency Diversion. It's our behavioral health response program, in which a mental health clinician guides with DMT, and they have a specialty SUD. And so the Providence Center currently holds that contract, providing PFD, and it's been a very successful.
No, yeah, that's awesome. Most of us are aware of that great work. So if it can be broken down for us.
Yeah, I can try to break it down in the little. I don't know that I can get it to the dollar, but I can kind of, like, there are certain contracts that are estimates when the budget is proposed, and so.
I mean,
it'll fluctuate by year.
maybe everything over $100,000. I don't know what makes sense.
Okay.
Just so we can, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the full dollar amount. I guess like if just those the big ones that are listed here, and in other cases they've been listed. Just so we're aware. I mean, I'm sure we could ask the auditor for
Yeah, let me
for that
think
as
about-
well if needed.
Yeah, let me think about some ideas I have on how to present it.
Awesome.
I might just maybe do like a little contract sheet so we can just high level what the contracts are by department, and that's fairly tied to lands, but I've got a little time for our next hearing, so let me put something.
Oh, we appreciate you, Crystal. And then lastly, so I know these grants and contracts, the review, the grants that the city does, there's like $7 million in grants. Is this department like aware of those? And I guess like to be specific, I just want to know what Crossroads uses their $129,000, and I want to know what Amos House uses their $250,000.
You know. Yeah.
Sure. So to give you a little bit of background, in FY25, the administration of the bulk of the budget grants was actually shifted to HHS. It was formally, I think, for a period of time, implemented out of the policy office. Because HHS is by and large already working with so many of these partners, the goal was to provide a sort of streamlined interface for organizations like Crossroads and Amos House to have a central point of contact for any and all contracts, and also for us to have a line of sight and consistency across reporting, across fiscal management. And so we've taken in the budget grants. We administer the bulk of those contracts, which includes development of the contracts, processing of invoices, as well as collection of the quarterly reports. I think you're all aware and have probably had conversations or organizations approach you for funding in the budget over the years.
That's never has happened.
Never happened. Those are very important and precious dollars that we put out to sort of core anchor institutions in the city to enable them to provide, basic high importance services to the city consistently and sustainably. So these are our community libraries. This is our network of neighborhood-based community centers. There are also, I think, downtown Providence Parks Network, WRWC, who really sort of provide specialized programming on behalf of the city water fire as well. So for Amos House, their contract is predominantly for the stipends for their participants, which, not to get into the federal compliance weeds, but we fund them also through CDBG, but CDBG, we are not able to pay for those participant stipends. It's not an eligible use. And so the city budget grant has really been crucial in being able to provide the direct payments to those participants, of which there's probably more than 300 participate per year. And so that the bulk of that is really sort of for the delivery of that program, staffing, and the direct stipends to those participants. Likewise at Crossroads, it's direct staffing, housing navigation, front desk staffing, and other operating costs to deliver their programs and aren't otherwise eligible elsewhere. But certainly, if there's any additional information that we can provide, or answer any specific questions, we're happy to share any responsive materials.
Yeah, I think there will definitely. I know some colleagues have asked questions on some of these grants. I think we'll definitely follow up at some point with Councilman Royce, and I think we're all set.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I guess I'll just start by saying that there's a growing encampment across the North End, and I feel like my neighborhood has probably felt this disproportionately compared to other neighborhoods. Maybe it becomes in every probably neighborhood. But I think in my observation of the crisis, I feel like we put a lot of resources towards affordable housing, preservation, production. But when folks are at their lowest and they're experiencing chronic, unsheltered sort of homelessness, what I often see is really outreach teams are spread thin. And I think with regional access points in my view, the shift to RAPs, which I know is a state function, I feel like it's put a lot more pressure on outreach teams, and who are now I'm having less contact with because they're assigned to specific regions by the state. But I'm wondering, when it comes to city funding, are we giving any funds to agencies who are tasked, like it's housing under the umbrella of sort of housing navigation? Does that also consist of sort of outreach teams who visit encampments and
It does. Rachel, do you want to speak to that contract?
Yeah, we currently hold a contract with East Bay Community Action Program, with the East Bay Recovery Center specifically, and that's to provide behavioral health outreach that's specific to our folks who are unhoused, experience unsheltered homelessness. And so we have direct contact with them. We can let them know when sites have been identified, when we've heard that there are individuals in need, and deploy them as such. And so that's for not just during regular business hours, but they're also contracted for evenings and weekends. I'll say the PAIR program that I spoke to earlier has also been a critical piece of the response. And they have been especially beneficial because they have even further extended hours. And we know often people will go out during the day and then return to where they're staying at night. And so they've been able to connect with a lot of individuals as well. And get them connected with services or even just basic needs that they might have in that moment. So really looking at like, what are the acute needs of that person, and then beyond to how are we connecting you with ongoing resources and support.
Of course.
So we have one agency tasked with outreach for the entire city. It's East
So
Bay?
East Bay does the statewide, and then we do have a contract that is grant funded with Project Weber Renew that is specific to downtown. I will say that those two teams are the ones that are fully funded through our city streams through Gen Fund and all through a grant direct to us. However, Dennis, who is within our department, our housing resource coordinator, he works extremely closely with the state outreach coordinator and has regular contact with the state teams. So I'll say those are the two contracts we have fully funded, one of only which is Gen Fund, and will be expiring in December of this year. So we'll be going back out for that. But we do work across all of the outreach teams to ensure that it really is a coordinated response, and that if someone has been going to a site and has built rapport with those individuals, that we're not inundating them and trying to bring in other folks who may hinder that process.
Yeah. We don't have a contract with Crossroads for direct outreach in the city.
So we have funded Crossroads Mobile Diversion Program, that recently sunset and is about to go back out. We're going to be releasing, as a reminder, we participate in Consolidated Homeless Fund, which is a consortium of the sort of urban communities who receive ESG funding and other funding. We've deployed programs through CHF, as well as state resources to provide sort of a one-stop shop for all of these outreach teams, shelter providers, and transitional housing providers to apply. And so what we might fund might vary per year, but ultimately the goal is there is a now state street outreach coordinator who is housed at Executive Office of Housing. We connect with, have weekly check-ins with that staff to ensure that, if we're deploying FCAP, that that's not duplicative of, for example, House of Hope is already deployed to that particular encampment. So there is an effort to not duplicate investments, not duplicate contact. And so there is, a behind the scenes coordination that's happening to ensure that, a qualified team that has built rapport is going out regularly to any encampments to ensure that basic needs are met and that people are being appropriately referred to shelter. I would also add, and sort of speak to sort of ability to influence contracts, that I would elevate them to do both Dennis and myself represent the city on the Consolidated Homeless Fund. And so if you have concerns about any contracts or any administrations, or you're hearing from unhoused constituents that you work with, the dissatisfaction with any services, please always flag that to us so that we can bring that back. Because we do have leverage, even if we're not directly funding the contract, we participate in the scoring and review of all applications through the CHF. And so, that's helpful information for us to have.
I'll connect with you offline. I do have concerns in regards to that, and I worry about our ability as a city to provide oversight when it comes to if on the ground contact is happening consistently. And again, these are, and I also there's like this level of, it's not that I think that workers are trying not to work. I think that is a tough job, and the turnover is so high, and I really worry about how, because the turnover is so high, how the report can break down. Clients can see different faces, and how that hurts the work. And so I just want to put that out there, and it's a segment of solving this housing crisis that I feel like we don't put enough resources into. And I think that I think the general view of society is that once these folks are in the hole and they're experiencing chronic unsheltered homelessness, I just feel like the general view, I'm not saying you all hold this view, but it's kind of like, oh, once they're there, we can't help them. They're gonna stay there forever. And I feel like the overall conversation we're having statewide, I'm not hearing any dialogue about, putting resources towards paying people a living wage when it comes to those outreach teams. And I think that in my experience of being really literally on the ground in the North End at these encampments, again, I'll connect offline. I'm not hearing a whole lot of contact. So, but
No, thank you, Councilman Rose. That's a really good point, and I'll be honest. I had to step away from that line of work. It's traumatic, to be honest. It's literally a crisis every single day. So I think it is really important to increase capacity to some of these outreach teams. The big issue that a lot of these outreach workers had is just there wasn't anywhere to go for folks, whether that's emergency shelter or obviously more permanent support housing. So anything that we can do to keep increasing these investments, we definitely, it's important to not duplicate work, but I think we need to increase our investments as much as possible. With that being said, I don't think there's any other questions. A big gratitude to everyone that participated in this hearing. Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Thank you, Councilwoman Davidson. Thank you, Councilor Pearson. Thank you, Councilor Royas. A huge shout out and gratitude to all the folks from the administration, council staff, and I'm just so grateful for everyone. 'Cause I really enjoy this work, and I know a lot of you guys probably also enjoy this work, but I mean, this is such a sacrifice, and I think it's important to recognize that we're all committed to the city and to the people that call Providence home. So thank you. Obviously, shout out to the clerks and to Kenny, missing some baseball to be here. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to continue items 1 through 5. Motion made by Councilman Taylor, second by Councilman Peterson. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. This time I will take a motion to adjourn.